Hello, everybody.
Hi. Jen, if you'll let me know when you're recording, that'll be a reminder for me to record.
Usually the mayor kind of just starts and I'd have to interrupt him to. I'd say we just both go for it. You're muted.
Like now, you mean?
No, well, you can do yours now. It's harder for me to edit mine later because the files are so big.
I'll wait till he at least comes on.
Do you guys know if it's possible to create a background when you're not logged in as an official account? Do you know what I'm saying?
It depends on what software you have on your computer. I've struggled with it because my computer is kind of a little bit dated. So I don't even bother.
I've been able to do it when I log in as Town of Alta, but I don't see a pathway to do that now. So like the mayor. I'm just in a relatively public part of my house now with this new office setup. So
yeah.
No closed sessions in there.
That's one reason why I
they're
face
eating lunch all day.
That's one reason why I have the wall as my background, so people don't see Jonathan wandering around.
I'd love to see him, but
He's out there skiing right now.
I'm so happy that he's back on his feet.
Yeah, he's work skiing. He's had a pretty good couple of days.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
colleagues.
Just discovered her out of Staples. All right, so it is 3:00. So I guess it's time to get started. And I see Cliff, Elise, Sheridan. I don't see Margaret yet. Okay, Polly says her microphone isn't working, so she's going to reboot her machine. All right, first order of business is for me to read a determination letter. Here's Margaret. Hello. Okay, I wrote this. This is dated March 2nd, 2021. I, the Harris Sondak, the mayor of the town of Alta, hereby determine that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location pursuant to Utah Code Section 52-4-2074 and Resolution 2020 R12. Facts upon which this determination is based include the percent and number of positive COVID-19 cases in Utah have been significantly higher since a year ago this weekend, actually. May 27, 2020 is what is indicated here. The 7-day average for cases on March 1st is 603, with about half the state's cases in Salt Lake County. As of March 1st, 2021, there have been 1,949 deaths reported in Utah because of COVID-19. So this meeting will not have physical anchor location. All attendees will connect remotely. Attendees may join the webinar by registering for the meeting through the town website at the www.townofalta.com, or the meeting can be watched on YouTube, both live and recorded. Additionally, comments may be emailed to the town clerk, plever@townofalta.com. This determination expires in 30 days on April 1st, 2021. Okay, so that's the first thing we needed to do. Now, we have 4 items on our agenda for this work session, so we have a number of things to do. The first is the zoning ordinance changes. So I'm going to address myself to John Gouldner. John,
I wish my microphone wasn't working.
you are
We've
the
done this
zoning
before.
issue czar.
Hello, everyone. Well, then I must not be doing very good because I'm looking at 10, 6A, 9, G3, which we have been looking at for the last 3 or 4 months. Today could be the last time, I'm hoping. This particular issue is what is possibly exempt. What would we possibly exempt for the ski area, commercial use for ski area and picnic area, from the newly suggested 100-foot and existing 50-foot setback from waterways. Now, we've talked about this a lot. I think this new paragraph that is before you, or first I should say, if everybody has, hopefully, the memo from March 4th, 2021, that pretty much lays out everything as current as it is from me and Polly.
Do you want me to share that?
Well, ooh, if you would, that would be great.
Okay.
So I think, I think this paragraph, it's very, very important. We've made some changes after listening to everybody. If we get through this, really everything else is language preferences and not real policy changes. This is the big one. What we've done on this now, possible exemptions for ski area and picnic area structures, not buildings, on Forest Service land only, so long as the approvals, if required by regulatory bodies, are submitted to the town of Alta before any activity. So what we did to change this over the last time is, number one, it's very difficult to throw in private property right now, so we left that out. There are possibilities of other ways to address issues like this on private property in the future, but it just doesn't seem to work very well right now in this. So we're limiting this to Forest Service property only for the ski area. We're going to include all zones. That would be FR and FM. Whatever we do in this paragraph will also be repeated in 10.1.7, which is a building permit is required for basically everything, all structures. Again, this is structures, not buildings. And a couple of issues that we heard from the past was on these exemptions, what if, and what's the process if, say, the ski area wants to do a sign and the Forest Service or the public utilities doesn't normally look at these signs and approve them. So what we did in here is we said, okay, the town wants to be notified of any improvement that is going to go in, any structure that is going to go in, and we need to be notified whether or not it would normally receive approval, formal approval by one of these bodies. And then we want that notification before any construction is done. And the other thing we added is, or before there is any site improvements for this structure. A couple of issues that were difficult from the past. So I think the way this reads now addresses everybody's previous concerns, except for Mike's related to the private property, but we'll have to deal with that later in a different section in this particular 10.6A9. But with that, this paragraph, if we can get through this paragraph in 20 minutes, like I say, everything else is gravy. With that little lead in, I'll throw it back to the council, mayor and council, and let Polly and I know what you think. How close are we?
Okay, so thanks, John. So these are the two paragraphs that John was just talking about, and you can see the modifications here for the Forest Service property and here about this prior to structure being put in place or any site preparation. Again, here. Okay. Council members?
I don't see any lips moving, but everyone is muted anyway, so.
Right. I mean, does that mean that we actually have some, have come to a acceptable place on these two paragraphs?
I sent an email to a couple of you today following a conversation that I had with Jim Elleringer about the Albion Basin and the overlay zone that we're proposing to adopt because of the fragility in that area. And I wanted to understand a little bit more about that, not having heard the presentation that he gave to the Planning Commission years ago when they came up with the language that they sent us in 2018 that did not include any exemptions that we're now looking at. And the concerns that he expressed were related to new construction versus exempting existing lift towers, signs, picnic tables, fire pits, and so on. But he said that there's a real concern with new construction of these kinds of structures imposing problems into the water and causing clean water concerns that seems to me in conflict with our intention to recognize and to ensure the preservation of clean water and the protection of the Albion Basin in particular, but also throughout the town to say that those things are exempt from the requirement that they be set back. I mean, in essence, it would allow these things to be sited in the creek themselves or a foot off of it, an inch off it, whatever, and that would be acceptable. And as we know, and as John just said, there is no current review apparently or prohibition by the Forest Service or Salt Lake City Public Utilities related to some of these things. And I don't know to what extent many or just a couple. And so to say, well, we're going to rely on those entities to enforce the preservation, enforce the clean water that we know is something that Utah is interested in, that the Congress was interested in, as I understand it, when they proposed the legislation recognizing the primacy of Utah water in this area, to then say that we're going to go to the floor of the restrictions doesn't seem to me to be consistent with our desire to preserve the environment. So I'm suggesting not that we automatically exempt, because clearly there is a difference between a 4-foot hole for a signpost, for a speed limit sign, as I think Elise mentioned many months ago, and a sign that would require excavation and electricity and other kinds of things in order to provide other services for that sign. And citing picnic tables and fire pits very close to a stream bed, which this exemption would allow, is not consistent with protecting water quality and allowing the vegetation to buffer the sediments that are stirred up by that activity. So my thought is that as far as I believe, I think we're not yet there. I don't know what the question Polly posed to Becky Hotsey when we got the opinion that said these exemptions would be okay. Was that the extent of the provisions that we could provide? Or was it just, this is acceptable because you are not demonstrating an intention to put the town of Alta regulations ahead of federal regulations, laws, and provisions. So it seems to me that's important to know before we say this is what we need to do, when we recognize that we want to protect the environment. But I'm interrupting you, Harris. What were you going to say?
You didn't interrupt me. I was just thinking about what would come next after you finished your statement. I don't know if Polly wants to weigh in on the specific question you just posed to her. I am pretty surprised if it's indeed the case that there are no Forest Service or Salt Lake City Public Utilities or Salt Lake Valley Health Department rules governing disturbance of actual streams.
Well, and I can just put, so the letter to the Forest Service, or my communication with them, was in response to, early on, Alta Ski Lifts was saying that we couldn't regulate and would, with the exemptions versus, there were just some questions about what we could do. And so I thought it was prudent to, and also as part of our MOU with the Forest Service, they are supposed to be aware of ordinances, land use ordinances that involve, that are within the town of Alta that could impact the Forest Service. And so, I think you can see from the string of my email, it was basically, here's what we're proposing. Is there an issue with does the Forest Service have an issue with this? And you saw the response, and they did not.
Right, but we did. Sorry.
No, that's it.
And part of this, Mike Mon reminded me that part of this, we're creating an ordinance that mirrors what actually happens. So part of this is already happening anyway, and we don't really have any say over it. And the thing that I would throw out is that there was a really good question. There were two questions that were hanging from the last time. I mean, the Forest Service can kind of do whatever they want on Forest Service property with the ski area, with the permit area, and we're echoing that here. But what happens when it's a little sign that nobody really, the Forest Service says, yeah, we don't actually look at those things, or this public utilities say we don't actually look at those things and approve those things. So that's one of the, we try to address that by saying that we need to be notified that this is not something that the Forest Service, Public Utilities, Health Department, whomever looks at anyway. And we'll know that before. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. We'll know that before any site prep or before any installation is done. So we didn't have that before. So that's new and that's good. And the site prep is new and good. But I guess, yeah, I don't know where to go from there.
Well, I completely agree with the concern expressed by Councilmember Burke about the 100-foot setback. I thought that Professor Elleringer made a really compelling presentation before the Planning Commission a few years back. And it was because of Professor Elleringer's presentation written and in person at the planning commission, that we adopted the 100-foot setback within the Albion Basin zone. And it was because of that we fought so hard to keep it. The reason for the exemption goes back to 1789. It's the property clause of the U.S. Constitution, and it's the limit of the town to regulate. And to my mind, ski area operations are at the very center of the purpose of the special use permit. We have competent regulators in that area who are going to take precedence in any event. Nobody's putting stuff a foot away from the creek. That's not happening under Salt Lake water or under the Forest Service. And so that is simply the reason for the exemption.
I'm going to ask now, are there, what else do we need to do? Because we're close to the end of our 20 minutes. What are the other items here, John? Were you expecting us to go through all 2.5 pages here?
No, I was expecting it. The other items are nowhere near. Well, I don't want to dismiss them, but they're not as serious as this. This is the heart of the matter. If we get through this, we can deal with those other items. We could deal with those other items in 20 minutes.
Okay.
This is the most important thing. And I kind of think that we shouldn't really do anything else until we figure this out.
Okay.
And I thought we were close enough.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I think, as we discussed a month ago, we'll put a motion on the table and have a vote about the whole zoning code, and we'll have to be methodical about potential amendments to that. All right. So, in the last minute or so, is there more discussion on these 2 paragraphs? Okay, I think it might be worthwhile, John, if one thing that we could do is we could have a conversation specifically with our partner agencies and with the ski area about what kind of regulations would in fact pertain to such a idea of putting a sign or a fire pit or a picnic table inside a stream, say, or on the banks of a stream.
That's a good idea.
If I may chime in, I just had some questions about where the picnic tables that were in contention over the summer were oriented. It did seem to me that they were awfully close to the creek. And I'm concerned that the way that the ordinance as currently constructed would not prevent that going forward. And so that's sort of, to me, the crux of the dilemma around some of these things that seem to be outside of the scope of our current overview as a town. And that's what I was hoping we could see written into the restrictions of this ordinance.
Are the picnic tables you're thinking of the ones at the campground, Sheridan, or are you talking about some other ones?
So the new ones that went in that were very large, that were in between sort of the campground entrance, the old parking lot, and the brand new, much expanded parking lot that were very close to the waterways.
All right, well, I'm going to move us to our second item, which is let me get back to the website and I can share this.
Well, Harris is looking, I'll find out, Sheridan, and try to see what our holes are.
Thank you.
Okay, so now what I'm going to share, whoops, moving stuff around here, is a draft request for proposals for a business license study, as we've discussed.
Mayor, I'm also set up and I can share if that's helps you. Either way, you've got it.
Yeah, I actually, Jen, have noticed a couple times that sometimes when I go between screens, my sharing ends up with a blank page. So follow along so that we can hand it off to you when we need to, if that's okay. It's been a while since I've restarted my computer. That may be the issue. Okay, so anyway, we have this draft business license fee study. Jen, do you want to get us started on this?
Sure. So at the last town council meeting, my understanding was the council wanted me to develop 2 RFPs. One was a basic business license fee study, and the second was a revenue and expense analysis. So the first one being the business license study fee. This is something that the town last did, I believe 2010, 2011. Our report is from 2012. So, you know, it's been almost 10 years. So it's time we, you know, update this study. And, you know, business license study fees are fairly routine RFPs that municipalities put together and conduct. So I feel like in this situation, this is a fairly regular thing that, you know, the town staff would be doing.
Right. And this is, and can you say something about the language here and where this language comes from?
Yeah, so I used the 2012 or 2011 RFP as a template for this and basically provided an update to it. I didn't feel the need to spend excessive time trying to start from scratch. Why bother doing that when you don't have to? I was trying to be efficient with my time, and it seemed to serve the purpose unless anybody feels otherwise.
My impression is that a business license fee study is a thing that people know what it is.
Yes.
The people who provide those services have a sense of what that means.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know if we want to, if the council has any comments, but one of the things, I'm scrolling on my other screen. One of the things that I did do with this, if you want to scroll down a couple pages to the timeline, one of the things I was thoughtful about, and Piper and I, you know, discussed this, there you go, was that, you know, if the council approves moving forward with a study, then, you know, my goal and what I did here was I tried to work back from when we normally send out our business license renewal package, which is, you know, in early to mid-September. So our business license cycle is November 1 through October 31st. So I send it out in September. People are renewing in the month of October, and then their licenses start on November 1. So I kind of worked backwards from that date and tried to provide a little bit of wiggle room with each of these.
Yeah, I think that was a good idea. And if there are indeed implications for or budget of whatever this produces, that can be dealt with as part of a mid-year budget amendment process, which we haven't always, well, this year we did. I don't remember if we did that in the middle of last year or not, but it seems like it shouldn't all be saved up until May anyway, so.
Yeah, there's not too much wiggle room in here, but again, like you were saying, this is, you know, I think consultants and entities that do this sort of study, they do it on a regular basis. So it's.
Yeah, I think there's I mean, there seems like there's enough time to do the study, a couple of months or a month and a half. And then you've got, are these the actual dates of a couple of our upcoming town council meetings? Right, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cliff, it looks like you want to say something.
Let's see, just a couple of little things. One is just a drafting point. Let me suggest if we go to paragraph 5F, the language that we started with, yep, right there at the bottom of page 3. I think the language that we started with might have been just missing a few words to make it a little tighter. So I would suggest that what we should be asking for is all disciplinary actions and all lawsuits or arbitration proceedings by or against the proposer. I think that should be not controversial and just maybe a little tighter drafting there. And then the bigger one is.
Hang on one second. Jen, did you catch that?
I believe I did. I might have to go back and look at the recording.
Oh.
I actually have another draft of this on a different computer where I'm tracking changes. So
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No. And then the other one is a little more substantive, and let's go back to paragraph 5A and thinking about what I would want to see as a business. And I understand that we're constrained by the procurement laws and rules, and there's 3 or 4 people in this meeting who know more about that than I do. But within what the law allows, anytime you have an all-inclusive fee, any bidder is probably going to put a little cushion factor in there to protect themselves. So if the law allows, I think it'd be awesome to have a not to exceed price and then a provision for sharing of any savings if the final bill comes in under that not to exceed price, sharing between the town and the contractor of the savings.
I think we've seen not to exceed language. Isn't that permitted, Polly?
Yeah, we use not to exceed language all the time.
So would that be in the would that be in the contract or would that be in this?
It would need to be in both, but you're asking, you need, if we could do that, and I think to make the not to exceed really effective, I think you would want to have sharing of savings. So it would be in the contract. It would also be in the RFP.
So would you just suggest putting it for 5A, just the proposal all-inclusive, not to exceed fee?
And then in the contract, we could put in, if it falls below this, then X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, you want to have that, and you want to, if we can do a savings share provision, maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 70-30. I don't know what's what experience has proven out, but we would want to put that into the RFP so that the bidder knows what they're looking at and how they would want to structure their bid.
Anybody else?
I had just a minor reference, and that is in the first page, the RFP closing date is April 30, and yet in paragraphs 4 and 12, we say the 29th. So just a matter of consistency for what we're doing. So
well, people have to know how to comply.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
So that way they don't catch foul by looking at the first page saying, oh, I've got till the 30th, and then it's actually the 29th. So, and then the second.
Where? Oh, here.
In the very heading.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
It should be the 30th. I'll
Okay.
fix the 29th. I think it's the 30th.
Paragraph.
Is the 30th a weekday?
It's a Friday.
Okay.
So in both paragraph 4 and in paragraph 12. And then the second thing was just, I understand your rationale for the 42 days. I'm sorry, Jen, I'm reading your lips, but I don't know.
I'm just making sure
I
Jen
was
is seeing
taking
what.
back what I was saying because actually Piper and I discussed that it would be great to actually have it due on a Thursday so I could have the package for the committee out on that Friday.
Okay, so
actually
make it the
I wanna do it on the
29th
29th.
consistently. Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right, sorry, Margaret, you wanted to say something else about 42 days someplace?
Yeah, the time period for the complete study, I think is like 42 days. And before it was 90 days in the 2010, 2011 period. The concern I have, the question I have, and I don't know if it can be answered or not at this point, is as more people are vaccinated, as the virus gets under control, we're hoping, we fully expect that things are going to get more active economically and that businesses are going to start to be doing things that they haven't done for a year. So I'm concerned that we're putting a much shorter time frame on this proposal that may be difficult for somebody to meet, saying, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. And we've got 2 holidays in there. So the question is kind of more a procedural question. But I understand Jen's rationale for the dates that she's put in there. I just would like, I guess there's in the selection committee the option of reviewing something that's a late proposal, but I don't know if you're committed to the July 7 date, how to do all the rest of that. So I just want to caution us that we don't hamstring proposers by giving them such a short window, that the only one who could comply is somebody who maybe has the template from the time that they did it for us before.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I suppose an interesting question that Margaret raises is that enough time? I mean, on the one hand, if we don't do that, it's going to be hard to get it in place for this year's business licenses. You know, one of the things we could do is could make a call or two about how long such a thing takes, Jen, potentially. All right. The other one, which we have 10 minutes now, less than, to talk about, is going to be more complicated, I'm expecting anyway. And that is an RFP for an assessment. Well, the title here is Assessment of Financial Resources. Jen, do you want to start us off on that conversation, please?
Sure. So this was the second RFP that the council asked me to put together. And so this one is much more, I guess, in a baby phase. I did review, Margaret, the proposal that Haskell had put together and some previous town council conversations when doing this. I will admit that I'm not sure I fully grasped everything that everybody on the council wants with this. And so I felt like I had to kind of put some things down on paper and allow a conversation to be had that would hopefully provide some more direction to staff, because I felt like the direction that had been given so far was so broad. I mean, I did try to hone it in. I think the most important sections in Mayor where I would like the conversation to focus would be on section 2, intent, and then the third section, detailed description of project. I think if the council could provide feedback to me on those 2 sections, I could then, take this a step further. So the key points in section 2 intent are to assess the town's revenue and expense structure, examine current and potential revenue sources available to the town, and make recommendations to the town that will improve the revenue and expense structure. Is that in a nutshell what the council believes this RFP should be doing?
Well, I think that's the right question to ask. Before we get to that, let me take a step back and ask a question that's going to follow with that question. This RFP, as currently drafted, has some overlap with the business fee license study, but not total overlap. And so I think we need to decide whether we want, in relation to the business fee study, whether we want this RFP to have some overlap, like it does now, no overlap, or complete overlap and completely include the business fee study within this RFP.
I would recommend that they be completely separate, because the business license fee justification under state law, we can't make, like, it's not a revenue source, right? So this RFP is more looking at the structure, looking at making sure that we're being fiscally responsible, other revenue sources, but the business license fee isn't actually a revenue source. So I think it would be a different analysis based on my experience.
Yeah, the business license study information is an input to this study, but this isn't seeking to recreate that whole effort.
Yeah, those are both good points.
Is this where you see the main overlap from the one into this one, Cliff?
Yeah.
Okay.
One way to address this, and the sequencing here is maybe at issue. Imagine we could snap our fingers and get these things done immediately. We would probably do the business license fee first, and then have that be, as Jen just put it, input into this one. So it may be that we ought to have this one be subsequent and have it actually say explicitly in here to refer to the most recently completed business license analysis.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That will push this off into, next late fall is what the implication would be.
And just briefly, can I also mention that I had the same two cost and same drafting point about that paragraph 5F, same comments apply to this RFP.
So here's the pricing paragraph, Jen, and
Yeah.
here's the 5F.
Okay.
Yeah. Oops, I just highlighted everything because I was looking at Jen rather than the document. So there's the 5F. What we could do, in terms of the schedule here for the RFP being issued and the proposal deadline, I don't think that somebody responding to this, somebody submitting a proposal doesn't, at the time that they're putting together their proposal, have to have the business license fee results, it seems to me. They just have to know they're coming. And I don't think they can do this work until they have that work. But they could submit the proposal in an overlapping kind of way. So maybe what we do is we ask for this to be done. I don't recall the Yeah, so
maybe in
the completed
August.
study would be July 7th presentations. Town considers modifications. Did I just switch documents? Can you see a different document now? This is the business license fee. Okay, thanks, Margaret, for the vigorous nodding, so I get the feedback. So Jen, when this is town considers modifications, I realize now that I didn't think about before. Is that modifications to the business fees or modifications to this report somehow?
I was thinking that would be modifications potentially to the ordinance,
Yeah,
business license
yeah,
ordinance.
okay. So it seems to me
And-
then that this one ought to be something like, September 1st, say, for the proposal or something like that.
But I recalled from before though, Harris, that you and was it Marabee spent several weeks, maybe longer, looking at the material that had been presented, and then there was then a final report that came from the bank and other input that you put in, so that I don't know where, if at all, that would take place in the timeline that would both affect the business license fee and the schedule that you're talking about for this revenue and expense.
You're saying that this is too optimistic? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm questioning, because as I say, I recalled from before, and you probably remember more than I since you were involved, but that you and Marabee had a draft report that you were working through and came up with information that then got filtered back to Zions, who then came back with a final report and so on. So that's the question. And maybe you know what it is you did and why, but it seemed like there were multiple iterations before even the final report came through, such that the completed study, July 7, I don't know. It seemed to me that your work with Marabee was before the completed study, and maybe that's, and yet the completed study had taken 90 days. So, but I haven't looked at it to see what the total of that timeline was, but I just recall from the RFP that it was 90 days until the study was supposed to be done.
For what it's worth, Margaret Piper and I did discuss that process. And she had expressed to me, and Piper chime in here if I'm incorrect, but that part of that review process would happen during the 6 weeks that here is between May 26th and July 7th. That, there would be back and forth between the consultant and the town at that time. So we had a discussion that would happen during.
I mean, I suppose one possibility is, we issue this, and I mean, it's a good idea to know if if it's feasible, given the timing, before we issue the RFP. And I just don't know if that's, I don't know. I mean, I don't see a way to build a lot more time into this schedule because of the October deadline.
Yeah, we might
The
have
other
a
thing
little bit of time between the modifications and the text amendments, right? Because once we have the presentation, it's just a matter of implementing the new fees based on the suggestions. So hopefully so there might be a little bit more wiggle room there. But the other thing is we could send it out, and then people are pretty, and then we can also call kind of the people that do these all the time, and just, I know someone who does, who's looked at a lot of these. I can ask him what the timing usually is to do these studies.
Right. The town council meeting is on the 8th of September. That's why this is the first.
Yeah, that date I didn't time it with a council meeting or just put some?
No, right. It's in time for a council meeting to be approved, say, right. Well, yeah, I mean, we could hold off on this until, say, Polly does that legwork, or we could issue it. And if people say this is crazy, then we'll have our answer about it being, not a feasible time. But I understand that takes that last course of action incurs a little bit of a risk that we'll get somebody to say we can do it, even if everybody else says we don't think we could. Okay. Thank you for all of those comments. We have a time in the regular meeting to take an action on the business license RFP. We did the other RFP is not, we knew that we weren't going to have a draft that we wanted to ask for action on today. Okay. Jen, you are the woman of the hour. Tell us
Before
about.
you go so just to be clear, the RFP doesn't need the council approval, right? So with this direction, just from the work session, staff can move forward as
Okay.
we've just discussed and are aware of all these issues that have been brought up.
So number 11, item number 11 on the main agenda says discussion on possible action on a business license study. I think that the RFP doesn't need to be drafted by the town council, but the town council does need to take an action to decide to go forward with the business license study.
Exactly.
So that's what we'll do next. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Polly, for that clarification. Jen, how many dog licenses do we need to talk? Tell us about dog licenses.
Okay, so based on our ordinance, dog licenses are set to be 25% of the most recent census population. So we have a total of 95 between Class A, which is our voter class, Class B, which is the property ownership class, and Class C, which is the commuter class, and Class D, which is the temporary licenses. We did have 5 licenses, and this was in my staff report, but it's not laid out as nicely in the resolution draft. But there were 5 licenses that were forfeited this license cycle. 1 Class A, 3 Class B, and 1 Class C. And so what we're essentially asking in this draft resolution is how to, does the council want to reallocate? And we have a suggestion here for you in this resolution. Let's see, you are, Harris, where are you? You're highlighting, okay, section 1. Okay. So what we're proposing in this resolution that we want your decision on is Class A. We would increase that class from 27 to 28. Class B, we would keep at 44. Class C would be reduced by 1. And then Class D would stay the same. So basically what I would then do a drawing for I'm proposing on May 3rd because May 1st is on a Saturday. And this is farther down in the resolution, but you don't need to go down there yet, Harris, is 2 Class A licenses and 3 Class B licenses.
And I think it's worth pointing out that we moved the license into Class A because we thought that has been this sense of this town council to favor that group of potential dog owners.
Yes, that's an important point.
But that is the town council can make whatever decision it wants to on where these go.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really decrease the licenses for existing dogs, so I would recommend against that. But you know, there's a little bit of degrees of freedom here, but not much.
And then the other thing that this resolution is doing is setting the fee structure for the license classes, and there's no proposals to change any of the fees. Those are all being maintained as they previously have been. So unless the council wants to change a fee, those are the same. And then I have the drawing parameters down there below. So people that are eligible for the class A or B, as this is written, would apply to the town staff or through me from April 1st through the 30th. And then we would do a drawing on Monday, May 3rd via Zoom, which is actually what I did last year. And it worked out wonderfully. It was one of my better Zoom experiences ever because everybody joined. Normally we get 1 or 2 people in the town office.
Show up. Yeah,
I had 10 people on Zoom. It was really fun, and everybody had their dogs, and it was a good time.
One thing that we might want to do, you know, revenue in either one of these studies that we were talking about is have an analysis of these license fees because, for example, we've been allocating Jen's time when she's working on the water or something like that. And it would be, I think that Jen's time, a lot of Jen's time goes towards this particular endeavor, and maybe we ought to think through these fees. But I would propose that we not do that this year, but think about it next year after we have the results of these studies.
I think that's a great idea. Jen, could you repeat again? So we're talking about putting one more tag in the Class A group and 3 or 4 more tags in the Class B group?
Class B is essentially staying the same. We just had 3 Class Bs get forfeited. So the number in that class is staying the same, and those licenses would be up for other people.
The only one that we're changing category, essentially we're decreasing 1 from Class C, that's the commuter dogs, and increasing the number of voters who could have a dog.
Correct.
I like that direction.
Me too. And just as what's the maximum number of temporary tags do we give out a month?
A month? It's not by month. It's
At a time.
There's 10 Class D licenses. So the way we operate it is on any particular day, there can be no more than 10.
So 3,600 plus annually, possibly?
If that many people ask for a single day permit, but that's not what happens in practice.
It's just occurred to me that this is a bit of a loophole in how we've come up with.
If you look at the minutes, you can see that the list is roughly less than 10 licenses per month.
Yeah, so for example, there over the Christmas period, there were a bunch. This time, just to take as an example, February 10th through March 8th, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, ranging in these are all 7. There's a 4-day one, and it ranges to a 30-day period. All right, we've got 5 more minutes. Is there? I mean, we can. Anybody have anything else to say about this?
Sure. It seems to me there's 5 licenses available. If we made 3 of those available to the voter class, and 2 of them available to the property class, then that would bring the number of licenses in Class A to 29, and Class B would still have 43 licenses.
Is there a reason why you're favoring one class over the other, just out of curiosity?
I like our voters.
Yeah, what that's doing is it's putting the emphasis on, and it's a lot. It's further down the path that Jen and I discussed by taking the commuter dog and moving it into the voter class. Cliff is now taking, let's call them second home dogs, and moving them into the voter class, which is I mean, the voters are presumably making Alta their primary residence, otherwise they're probably not voting there. So have a primary residence, get primacy in the dog license pool is, I think, the logic that Cliff is articulating. So then it would be 49, it would be 29 here, 43 here, 13 here, and 10 here is what I think Cliff is proposing. Next year, we may have a whole different kettle of, a whole different off-leash area instead of kettle of fish. Let's make a dog metaphor by per our census numbers, which we don't have. So we're using the 2010 census still. All right. We got a couple minutes. Anybody want to take a 2-minute break, come back, start the town council meeting, and Cliff, when we get to the agenda item on the dogs, we'll just make sure that the numbers that we are discussing are the ones that the town council wants in there. All right. Okay, I'm going to go refill my glass of water. I'll be right back and see you in a minute. All right. Well, we need to know that there are other town council members besides you and me, Cliff. I don't know that we have a quorum at this particular moment. There's Margaret. Okay. All right. Hi, Elise. Hi, Sheridan. All right. We have a quorum, and we are, in fact, we have 100% of us here. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Alta Town Council meeting of Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. we have just completed a work session from 3 to 4 in which I read the declaration of a virtual meeting. And just to confirm, Polly, that is adequate, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the first item on our agenda is, so that puts us 3 minutes ahead of schedule, which is nice. Citizen input is the next item on our agenda. Jan or Piper, you must have something.
We didn't get any written comments submitted, but we do have a couple guests with us on the line. And the first one, it is with great honor that I am going to introduce the new executive director of Friends of Alta, Cody Fox. Cody, let's see here. I am giving you permission to talk. Cody, are you with us? You might have to press, I think it's *6 to unmute yourself, Cody.
There we go. All right. Can you hear me, Jen?
Yes, we do hear you,
Okay.
Cody.
Terrific. Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction, Jen, and thank you everyone for having me. As Jen said, my name's Cody. I'm the new executive director at Friends of Alta. I come to this job after more than a decade of nonprofit experience and heading a few different organizations, and have a deep passion for nature and conservation and responsible stewardship. And this is something I'm very excited about, and I really look forward to working with all of you in the future and learning a lot from this meeting. So thank you.
Well, welcome to your new job, or congratulations on the new job, and welcome to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. And up next, we have Paul Huber. Paul, you should be able to talk now.
Can you hear me now, Jen?
I can. Hi, Paul.
Hey, I just wanted to talk about this blog that went out from Alta Ski Lifts on the parking. And I've been working up here for 38 years. And back when I started in 82, 83, Bill Levitt was the mayor. Chick Morton was running the ski lifts. And there was maybe 20 people skiing the backcountry back then. And I don't think it was on anybody's radar. And now it's like, it's exploded. People are skinning right up the apron of Superior, which I have to scratch my head once in a while they're doing that. And reading this blog and trying to push all the backcountry skiers above my business is gonna hurt. And coming off a pandemic year that we're all hurting anyway, I was hoping the town of Alta and Alta Ski Lifts could get together and just talk this thing through and work with each other. Hello?
I don't, yes, thank you, Paul. That would be good.
Thanks, Paul. And that's all we have, Mayor.
Okay. I know that there were, I forwarded some comments I received about this same issue to Piper. I don't know whether or not email that I received directly is meant to be part of the public record of this meeting. I think that would be good to know. I did forward them to you, Piper.
Yes, I got those. I don't know if they were the same ones that I had received. I had received 5 or 6 other comments. I was going to give it another week or so. If anyone else wants to write letters, compile them all together and post them on our site. I'm not sure exactly where that should go, if it should go under the town council page or just as a one of the pressing issues that the town's dealing with, but
Yeah.
it will be available. They will be available on the website.
Okay, Polly, can you give us your opinion on what belongs in the public record of this particular town council meeting as citizen input, please?
You know, if a citizen submits something to the town that says, please make this part of the record, then it should be attached to the minutes. as
Okay.
part of it.
All right, so that would mean that those emails that I sent you, forwarded to you, Piper, would not be part of the record of this meeting.
None of them said this is part of the record, but I think that the Alta Ski Lift, when they posted the blog, they said write to the town and to the mayor and tell them what you think. So
Yes, I noted that was what that said.
So Polly, are you saying that they should not be posted or that they should be?
No, you can, I mean, that's up to the count. There's nothing wrong with posting them. They're part of the public, you know, they're subject to the governmental records, grandma, so they're not private in any way. I'm just saying that in terms of the city council meeting, they don't need to be attached to the minutes as part of the record of this meeting. But if the town wants to compile them and post them so the public can see what that input has been, by all means you can. If you legally you can. If legally you could also not. You could just, you know, disperse it to the council, just informational, just as if a citizen writes to the council and says, we want you to consider X, Y, and Z. It's just, you know,
Okay.
informational.
Okay.
I think it's helpful, as you said, Harris, for people to know when they communicate to you or to council members at their official email what they can expect or should expect. And then it also assists Piper to be able to know. So it'd be good maybe to have some sort of policy.
For example, I was surprised that so many citizen letters from the last town council meeting flowed in, and yet they aren't part of the public record. I wonder if the citizens who took the time to write me were aware that that wasn't an automatic process unless they actually use the verbiage that you just described, Polly.
Flip side is sometimes people write to you and they don't necessarily want it to be part of the record, right? So it's just a matter, yeah, I guess you can, as a council, you could just decide, well, if I ever get a communication from the public, I'm going to put that into the public record. I mean, that just seems a little overly broad.
There were some emails that and text messages that I received and that our marshal received during the long interlodge event that I certainly would not be comfortable posting in a public place, although if somebody were to grandma request them, that would be a different story. I'd have to comply with that. But on my own volition, I would not do that given some of the language that was in some of those messages. So. Okay, we have no more citizen input, it sounds like to me, Jen, so I'm going to move on, which is speaking of the long interlodge event, I want to propose a resolution and ask for the town council to, I gotta get it to the size where I can actually show it. Just one, sorry. Okay. So this is a resolution that's talking about I think it's not too much to say the heroic and very effective efforts of our whole members of our community, led by Marshal our marshal, Mike Morey, and the UDOT Avalanche Control. Well, I don't know. There's lots of people were involved, and I'm going to read that in a second. But I especially want to thank our marshals and our marshals team. So we experienced a lot of snow between February 12th and February 18th. 103 inches of snow fell during this period. It is one of the remarkable things about Alta, how you can go from having not great skiing to having an unbelievable amount of snow and no more rocks. And not being able to duck under some of the trees that you duck under. 103 inches of snow fell during that period with a lot of water. And the number of avalanche occurrences, 157 natural and explosive triggered avalanche occurrences. The amount of ammunition that was used is quite remarkable. The road was closed because of avalanche hazard during that period for 70 hours. It was, by my count, 59 3/4 hours continuous at the back end of this. Was the interlodge, and then we had the road closed a little bit longer at the back end. We did have 267 individual explosive detonations. We had one of our UDOT employees, 2 of them were in a vehicle that got hit by an avalanche and were happily not injured. We had interlodge restrictions. So our marshal, our deputy marshals, the dispatchers, the town of Alta staff, UDOT, the avalanche safety and maintenance crews, Alta ski area management, the Alta ski area snow safety personnel, the Alta ski area and independent snow removal staff, the lodges, property managers, firefighters, and Alta clinic staff all provided a coordinated response and working together. And I know that it was tirelessly because I know I was on my radio in my, I was stuck in my condo like everybody else, but I was on the radio quite a bit. Worked together over this period to clear the road, support and prioritize the health and safety of individuals present in Alta. And in fact, removed one individual from the upper canyon by snowcat over fields of avalanche debris. So I'm asking that the town council approve a resolution that acknowledges the work and sacrifice of those various people on our behalf. So I would move adoption of resolution 2021 R4.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion? Okay, Mike, you're on this call and we thank you. And I believe I saw Mike Mon as an attendee, and we want to thank you too, Mike, and all of your staff members. Jay Torgeson is an attendee, and we want to appreciate the UFA. It's one of my proudest moments as mayor is when we pull something like this off as successfully. And Mike, my thanks and my heart, my admiration go out to you and all of the other people in this effort.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I don't think there's even a reason to ask if there's anybody opposed after that response. So, okay, thank you, Mike. All right, the next item on the agenda is I invited Ralph Becker, the Executive Director of the Central Wasatch Commission. Hello, Ralph, it's good to see you. To address us for a few minutes to tell us about the mountain transportation study and the upcoming Mountain Transportation Summit. He's not going to have enough time to to brief you in much detail, you can go to the CWC website and listen and see a lot of information. But I thought it was timely, considering that the summit is next week, for us to hear from the Central Wasatch Commission.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and others. It's good to see so many friendly faces. Well, maybe not always friendly. I understand how that works. But it's so good to see all of you. We really just have a few minutes here, so I'm going to just touch base on a few items, and then I'm happy to follow up in any way that suits you with either any information or to answer questions. Mayor Sondak has been a very, very active member of our commission, sometimes to his dismay, I will say, because it takes so much time. But I will note one thing that your council looked for and played a big influence on the Central Wasatch Commission that is now getting underway, and Mayor Sondak was on the selection committee for the Central Wasatch Commission to do a visitor use study. You recall that you all said, you know, we've got to get a handle on all these people coming up here. And so that it had been ruminating for a while with the commission and the stakeholders council of the commission, and we are now moving forward. We're just completing the selection process that was done yesterday, right, Mayor?
That's right.
And it'll go formally to the commission for their approval of the contract, presumably.
That's actually a good point, Ralph. I might have said who we recommended, but I might have used the wrong language about selection.
Well, yeah, I think we have to wait. We're still
right.
We still have to complete a few loops of communication.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said it the way you did, because I might have gotten myself into trouble.
So I'm going to move, if it's okay, I'm doing a share screen with you. Can you see that? Oh, hold on just a second. Whoops, it should have been, I've given you the wrong share screen, I'm afraid. Or can you see that it says Central Wasatch Commission?
Yeah, with a bighorn sheep.
Right, with the bighorn sheep. So you all, I think, are all familiar with the commission. So I'm going to just move quickly through these slides and get to the transportation element of this. But since we met with you last, we've actually added 2 members, the town of Brighton and UTA as a non-voting but ex officio member of the commission. We have a stakeholders council that's made up of lots of groups. Can you see that? Because I can't tell what's on your screen.
We're still seeing the bighorn sheep.
All right, let me figure out why this isn't moving, because I don't know. I don't know why that isn't happening. I've got share screen working, right? And you can see the bighorn sheep?
We can, yeah. You just have this, maybe you can scroll down to the next slides, or.
That's what I'm trying to do, but I'm obviously inept for some reason here. So I apologize for that. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm just going to talk through this because I know you're very short on time. But the commission has been working through a lot of things. And as I said, Mayor Sondak is really active with us. And one of the things that's coming out of our budget committee is looking at community by community, jurisdiction by jurisdiction at the various elements of what the commission is working on and the approach the commission is taking and how that works for you, we would hope. What I'd be showing you now is a timeline for the mountain transportation system and the work of the commission in this year, in actually 2020 through 2021. And there are 2 main thrusts for the commission. You all have been very involved in the congressional legislation piece. That has taken a back seat this last year to focusing in on mountain transportation. We are working in parallel with UDOT on their EIS for Little Cottonwood Canyon, but we are looking geographically more broadly. We're looking at the whole region. And we are focusing in not just on relieving congestion on SR 210, but how we can best serve the array of users year-round that are coming from all different areas and have different interests and objectives in the mountains. We're a long way through it. We spent most of 2020 on it, and we're now in 2021. And at the end of last year, the commission decided to actually double up their time to really see if they could hone in on a lot more detailed information on the three primary modes: bus, aerial, or rail, bus, gondola, or rail, and to understand what the full ramifications were before they could make a recommendation. They've had an enormous amount of public involvement, work with stakeholders, and in December held a retreat that lasted over 2 days. I'm not sure if any of you participated. The mayor did, of course, but lasted over 2 days, and that's what led them to go, well, we know a lot, but we don't feel like we both know enough, and we sure aren't close to making a decision. So we've been diving into a lot more detail and depth about each of the modes, how they function, how they would affect each jurisdiction and the region as a whole, and how they would affect the environment, with watershed obviously being at the top of that list, and serve all users and work within the context of Big Cottonwood Canyon and Mill Creek and going around to the Wasatch back. So they're moving along there. I will say that there's a meeting, as Mayor said, on the 19th, so 9 days from now, from 9 to 12 in the morning, where the intent was, and maybe still is, to see if the commission can come at a recommendation by consensus. We're probably a long ways from that, is my guess. But it's not because of a lack of good intentions. It's because these are really hard decisions. There aren't any easy ones, and there are impacts on Alta as there are on everybody else from different vantage points. And people are trying to work through it. And so we're working hard to try to be ready for that meeting, and to see how far the commission can go towards making a recommendation that could then feed into the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS. So anyway, that's in just a few minutes sort of what we've been doing. We're continuing to work on the congressional legislation. We put out another draft that removed all the land exchanges and received public comment. The commission is looking at that. And the hope and the intention, looking at their sort of timeline and objectives, is to have both of these major endeavors with commission, at least, recommendations in the spring of this year. We're looking at April 5th deadline, but I won't be surprised if it gets carried out a little further. So anyway, Mayor, I'm happy to try to answer questions. That's maybe too quick a summary in terms of the information, but.
Well, thanks, Ralph. I mean, one thing that I think is important for everyone to recognize is the relationship between, and you touched on it, the relationship between what we're doing and what UDOT is doing. UDOT is a decision maker in its own right. We are I think, what's the language? A partner agency? Is that the right language? Or Chris, remind me what that language is.
Participating agency.
Participating agency with UDOT. So they will consider what we have to say, but they are making a decision in a way that we don't get to control their decision. Is that's fair, right, Ralph?
Yeah. CWC really serves, as the mayor said, as an advisory body, but the belief is that if all of the local governments can come together, it won't just be the influence of Alta or the influence of Mill Creek or Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City, but collectively local governments can have a more powerful influence over trying to arrive at the best solution.
And the scope of what we're doing at the Central Wasatch Commission is a lot broader. The whole Central Wasatch transportation is an issue where the EIS is Highway 210. Are there questions for Ralph or, yeah, Margaret, looks like you want to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Becker, for coming today. I just have a question whether this particular slideshow would be available to us subsequently maybe, or could be posted on our website if there's information there that you intended to share, but with the shortness of time and the inability to actually get it to play, whether we could look at it subsequently.
Yeah, I'm obviously very happy to do that. I'll just ask Chris or whomever, do you want me just to send this to you as a PowerPoint and then you can put it up in whatever form you want? And we could put this up on our CWC website, but this is tailored specifically to Alta. So maybe better just to share it among your community there.
Yeah.
Does that work, Chris?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the CWC website has a discussion about the Mountain Transportation System project, although it doesn't have that particular slideshow on it.
But there's, you won't be short of information if you go and look at the Mountain Transportation tab or part of the CWC website. If you go there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Becker. I'm curious, and I know that this is still nascent and there isn't consensus. Do you have round dollar figures for those potential solutions between bus, Gandhi, or rail?
Yes, and I will say it's all in the UDOT alternatives report of November of last year. But I will note that there is an enormous amount of disagreement about whether the UDOT numbers accurately reflect what the true costs are. We spent 3 hours in a meeting last week with UDOT, UTA, and Stadler Rail trying to reconcile these really big differences. I mean, we're talking UDOT's numbers are twice the numbers of Stadler Rail, which would design and build a rail line. So we're trying to work through those, but they are available. The probably best place to see at least the UDOT numbers are they've got a table on their alternatives report for Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS. But in very rough numbers, if you want to know, we looked at life cycle costing, 30-year to 2050, because obviously this is a huge investment for a long period of time. In very, very rough numbers, bus is about 500 million, gondola is about 500 million, rail is about 1 billion. The Stadler people at rail said if you gave us that amount of money, we would guarantee to build the rail line and we would be fine. So, there's that discrepancy there, but those are rough numbers.
So Ralph, if you stop sharing your screen for the moment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll show the town council and the public that this is the website for the Central Wasatch Commission, and there is under projects is the Mountain Transportation. And on this site, there, as Ralph said, there's a ton of information. But Sheridan, if you scroll down far enough and you see bus education session, rail education session, gondola education session, and then the EIS education session, you'll see a bunch of numbers in there and comparisons.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is all very public. I was going to make a comment during my mayor's report about the last meeting I went to for this, which was just last week on the 1st, about, and I'm happy to say this now too. And I don't know, Ralph, we didn't talk about this at that meeting, and I'm wondering how you felt when I said this to UDOT. But I felt like, their purpose and need statement is mobility and reliability. And Margaret Roger will really appreciate this statement, I think, is that they don't have a definition of reliability that I found comprehensible. And So they, in these education sessions, they say things like the bus will take 54 minutes. And again, Roger will appreciate this. It's like, what's the variance around that number? That's a point estimate of a mean. Some days it's going to take 2 hours. Some days it's not. It's going to take 50 minutes, right? So how are you defining reliability was a real issue for me. But I don't know, Ralph, if you want to react to that comment.
No, I think, and UDOT's struggling with that too, in fairness.
Yeah, sure.
They're having, you have to put some numbers out there. And they're looking at, they're looking from, I think, CWC's vantage point quite narrowly, and they believe properly so for their responsibilities at the roadway. And what do we do to relieve congestion at peak times on the roadway? And, the lens for most of us is bigger than that when we think about transportation and access and what the impacts are on a broader environment and on all the different kinds of users, not just to the resorts, because that's the only destination they're identifying. So it's, they're doing their best within, as the mayor said, a narrow purpose and need, a narrow set of objectives they've identified. And we're struggling with the bigger picture.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. And the summit, I presume, is a public meeting because the commissioners are all there.
Absolutely. And, I know that every jurisdiction is working through this, and we are certainly open. The mayor's put in an enormous amount of time. I think we've just about abused him. Well, maybe we have abused you. But we're totally open to trying to be as helpful as possible, not just to our commissioners, but to everyone who's trying to sort this out.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ralph. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is an Alta Ski Area update by Ski Area's General Manager, Mike Mon. Mike, if you want to switch order, we can. If you're, it looks like you're engaged with something. Do you want to switch with the UFA, or you're muted? You're muted. That sounded like you would like to switch. Okay. All right. Is Jay available? Okay, Chief Torgerson of the Unified Fire Authority. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I got put on the spot a little early.
Yes. But you got cold called, as we say in the business school world.
That's all right. I'm ready. So just a short update on our COVID-19 situation. I think we're making great progress as a community. The reports from our hospital partners over the last couple of weeks have been very good. The University of Utah reported for the first time that their COVID unit is below 100% capacity. It sounds bad, but if you look at it over the last several months, it's great. So all the other hospitals are reporting similar trends that they have fewer patients, they are seeing less patients in their emergency department, and so they're starting to see the effects of vaccinations and continued people being careful with the procedures that are in place. So we as an agency have had great response to our vaccination process. We have about 90% of our personnel that have been vaccinated. Even with those vaccinations in place, we are still maintaining our safety procedures, our safety protocols. and we'll continue to do that over the next several weeks until further guidance from CDC may allow anything different. So we're going to continue operating as we have, both with how we operate internally as well as how we respond to patients. So all of our folks will continue wearing PPE, full masks on every medical call, regardless of what it is called for. Our 54th recruit camp is in full swing. They are in the middle of the sixth week of 16 weeks, and we have 33 recruits that are in that process currently, slated to finish the end of May. My division will be tasked with the recruits who are not currently EMTs. There's about 12 of them, and we will pick up their training right after they finish the fire recruits school in June, and we'll train them as EMTs for the month of June. And those 12 will go out into the field with their counterparts who finish the end of May. So we no longer require you to be an EMT to apply for a position with us. We felt like we want to reach quality individuals no matter what their previous experience and level of training is. And so we've been able to reach out to a broader group of folks that may not have experience or training beforehand, and feel like we're able to give them that training just with our own system. As far as the town of Alta, so far for this year, so year to date, total of 37 calls. 29 of those were medical calls, 4 of them fire calls, and 4 good intent calls. The mayor talked about the Interlodge event. I'm proud of the crew that we had up there, their hard work and ability to be able to function as a team with the rest of the community of Alta and Snowbird as well to help everyone get through that. I wanted to review our canyon response guidelines. I talked about that a little bit in the last meeting and just wanted to review that again and open it up if any of you have any questions. So we have started these new guidelines. They've only been in place for about 3 weeks. And so they are relatively new, and we consider it a work in progress. They're not set in stone. We can alter them, we can adjust them and tweak them as needed. Our focus is to make sure that we're providing the best service for the community at large, both as it relates to medical calls, fire calls, or any other type of call that you may have in the community. So what the difference is previous to this, you may have seen the crews traveling around the canyon in the ambulance, and that was typically what they would drive around if they were doing any kind of area familiarization, if they went down to shop, any of those duties that they would be doing outside of responding on a call. They are now going to be doing that in the fire engine. If they were to receive a medical call, they can still respond in the fire engine. It has all of the paramedic gear on the fire engine, and it also allows them to respond to fire calls. Where if they're in the ambulance, they can only respond to medical calls. And if a call came in while they were in the ambulance, they would have to return to the station, pick up the fire engine, and respond to the fire in that way. So it would result in a bit of a delay because of that. So our operations chief felt like it was a better service to have them on the fire engine and be able to respond to any type of call, including medical calls and fire calls. So with that, any type of call that occurs in the canyon will also receive a medical response by an ambulance from the valley. So if the crew is in the station and they get a medical call, they will respond to that call in the ambulance, as well as an ambulance responding from the valley. So there are 2 ambulances that will respond up to the call wherever it is. When the first crew arrives, which would be 113 if they are in the canyon, they will do a quick assessment. If it's an urgent patient that needs to be transported quickly, then they will have their ambulance there. They will be able to load the patient and take the patient directly to the hospital. If it's a patient that maybe can wait and it's not a significant wait, then they may wait for that ambulance that's responding from the valley to arrive and utilize that ambulance for the transport to the valley. What this enables the crew to do is to stay in the canyon and stay available and in service to respond to any other type of call, fire call, medical call, or any other type of hazardous call. If they decide to leave and take the patient, the ambulance from the valley will continue into the canyon and will stage at 113. So that will provide backup coverage while the 113 crew is involved with that transport to the hospital in the valley. And they'll stay there until the crew gets back into the canyon, and then they will replace one another. So I guess the plan is just to try to maintain a level of coverage. In the past with the crew from 113, if they responded to a medical call without any other response and then transported the patient, there was a period of time where your coverage for that time that they were gone would be coming from the Salt Lake Valley. So it could be slightly delayed or even significantly delayed during traffic or weather circumstances. Like I said, this is a work in progress. We met with Dr. Ken yesterday and our operations chief, as well as our medical director, and Mayor Sondak sat in on that meeting as well. There are some things that I think we can adjust to make sure that we're serving the clinics in the way that makes most sense for them. But again, we want to look at this in the broad view and make sure that we are servicing the entire community in general. So we'll continue to work with the clinics, both Alta and Snowbird clinics, as well as the physicians that are there. And any input that you have, please reach out to me and let me know so that I can work with our operations chief to adjust this as needed to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the community. I know that was a long explanation. Any questions or concerns?
Thanks, Jay, for that and for your attention to all of these details. Does anybody have a question for Jay, for Chief Torgerson? I'll mention that I got a call this morning from Chief Peterson, and to follow up on the conversation with Dr. Ken yesterday. And my impression of that conversation was it went pretty well, and that there was some increased mutual understanding of how complicated some of these procedures can be and how to make them a little bit less complicated. I did write to Dr. Ken, but after that meeting yesterday at some point, but of course he's pretty busy, and I didn't have a chance to talk to him today. So
sounds good. Yeah. Sorry for not having my video on there. I just saw that it was off.
Oh yeah, no, we could hear you. We just couldn't. We were looking at Mount Superior. Okay. All right. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate all of your service, and your crew did a great job. They were in there for much more than their 48-hour shift.
Everyone was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So next up would be Mike Mon from the Alta Ski area.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for not being ready when my turn came up on the agenda there, and thank you for accommodating that.
Oh, no problem, Mike.
So, I'd like to start off by saying, here we are. We're just we're 4 days away from the time when we shut down last year. We are pretty pleased with where we're at this point in time. There was a lot of unknowns as we all entered into this season regarding what impact COVID would have and the impact it could have on our employees and community. We're happy to report that since last March, we've had only 37 positive cases in our employee base. And all of those cases were from the contact or the infections came outside of the workplace. They were usually down in the valley in some social or living situations. We've had 48 other employees that have been quarantined. for direct contacts during that period of time. So those numbers are, I would tell you, are much less than we had expected could occur over that time frame. And we've also been very pleased with the results of people that have chosen to come skiing, and how the COVID procedures that we've put in place have seemed to work and allowed us to continue to provide recreational opportunities and minimize the spread. We had went into this season with a COVID operational plan, and everyone had told us from the southern hemispheres that, you'll start it and you'll change a lot of things. And we've been pretty pleased that we haven't had to change very much. We've been rather consistent in what we're doing, and it seems to have worked. To date, our skier visitation level this year compared to last year is about down 11%. It's been dropping quite a bit in the last week or so. As we get into March is usually the strongest month of the year for the ski area. And that's primarily because of the destination visitors. And that's the group that we don't seem to have coming. So we're dropping off. We think, our projections are right now that we will end up the year maybe about 15% down compared to a normal year. But may get us fairly close to where we ended up last year, time we get to the end. We'll see how that works. But we're still planning to stay open through the 18th of April daily, and then would open one additional weekend. That's still our plan, as long as conditions permit that to happen. We want to express our thank you to the Alta Marshal's Office for all the hard work and cooperation as we've worked together to deal through this COVID year and deal with traffic and road closures in our 3-day event. There's been 13 days that parking has been completely full in the town of Alta, and with the help of the Marshal's Department, we've been able to turn away the tide of constant cars that continued to come. There's been hundreds of people that we have turned away, but with the help of the sign and the communications and the postings through UDOT, we noticed as the year has went on that when we've gotten to the point when we've been able to get close to getting full, and we put that message out there, that we're turning away less people. People are getting the message, and they're not coming up the canyon. And we attribute a lot of that to the help from the Marshal's Department of the town of Alta. So thank you very much. This COVID year is it's put all the ski areas in a position where we've had to try to manage capacity, so that we can't go operate our normal mountain capacity. We need to operate at a reduced capacity with the COVID restrictions. And so there's been a variety of things that have been tried. You've had parking reservations, as you know, at Snowbird. You've had resorts that have controlled the demand by parking, like we have, first come, first serve. There's some ski areas have used ticket caps or ticket reservation systems, and some have used paid parking. And we have stayed in touch with a lot of those ski areas, very interested. We compare notes every time we meet at Ski Utah, as well as in some of the Mountain Collective and Icon forums. And it's, I would tell you that no one has the perfect answer. Everybody has disappointed skiers. There's across the board, there's been more demand than there has been capacity. While the parking has, our choice to use the parking to control the capacity has worked and give us the approximate route capacity that we wanted to have. There have been some unintended consequences, things that have caused us all some heartburn. We've seen that on weekends, particularly after the snow, which we had 7 weekends in a row where we had snow on Friday, we had this parking frenzy in the morning where all these people come up really early, that we filled parking lots often by 7:30 or 8 o'clock. We had filled lots that usually wouldn't fill till 9. And that posed problems for us. We had days where we filled up and we had no parking for employees. We had employees that were still stuck in traffic trying to get to work. We had days when we couldn't get the snow removed. out of the lots because of the people that are already here. And then it also resulted in, we've turned away hundreds and hundreds of Alta pass holders on busy days who felt they should have had a parking spot here. But it's the thing that I would tell you, those things have been challenges we've had to work through and pinch points, and caused it's made it evident that from my standpoint anyway, that it's given us a glimpse of the future, that as this valley continues to grow in population in the ski industry as a whole, as the destination skiers start to come back, that we need to actively start to take some actions to figure out how to manage that demand, so that we can have the right amount of people to come, and not put people in a situation where they're driving all the way to Alta to get turned around. And so we've actively continued to explore solutions. We initially had a proposal with the Forest Service, as you're aware, to expand some parking and not make any other modifications. There is concern now that may not work. We had, our thought was if we could expand some parking to replace what we're losing, which is primarily most of the Grizzly lot on the days that we need it, that we could potentially do some changes in product mix and some other things to reduce some demand that would get us to the point that we get a solution from UDOT or something else into play. Since the Forest Service is not quite, they've tentatively, or they've indicated that they're withdrawing their support for moving in that direction. We continue to explore options with them as what could be allowed. Our concern is if we truly have to go in the direction of restricting parking to ski area visitors, that has a significant impact upon the town, the property owners in Grizzly Gulch area and the Albion Basin cabin owners. So we've been trying to work with the Forest Service to find ways to, if we go to the point of requiring our parking areas to be used by people that are coming skiing, can we have some exemptions or something for those groups? So far, the Forest Service has not allowed us to go that direction because of discrimination issues, and we're continuing to work through them. With that, hopefully we can find a solution for long term. But one of the things we are concerned about is, given the growth in the valley and the various ticket products that are out there, if we don't have a way to manage it, we're just going to have more and more days that we have to turn people away, and that's not as we've all learned, it's not a very pleasant situation. A few days a year we can deal with, but when we start getting into the teens, then it's a little more challenging. So we're continuing to work on that. We don't know where that's going to fall out, but we're continuing to go forward. We are now looking, though, forward to the summer and summer operations. We will be putting together, I think the date is March 31st, is we're looking at maybe having a stakeholders meeting of the Alta community, those that would be interested in coming and giving us input and feedback regarding summer operations. We have our current thought at this point in time is, we continue to move forward with management of the fee booth. There is some discussion about the fee should maybe be raised from $8 to $10, and to cover some costs, but also because most people don't have change when they come, and dealing with the right amount of change has been an issue, particularly when people want to use the Iron Ranger off hours. So that's in discussion. We're looking at, one of the things we've identified is that this year we will not be plowing the summer road. We have no projects going on in the Albion Basin that require us to do so. So we'll just let that melt out, and when it's open, it's open. We do intend to have the campground store / info booth up near the entrance to the campground again. That was a success from not so much from a revenue standpoint. It actually lost a little money in operating it, but it was a very valuable information distribution point. You know, we found that they answered questions a lot and took some of the pressure off the road of trying to answer all the people's questions when they were entering into the basin. So that's something we're still looking at. We had purchased you may have noticed we purchased a food trailer that we have over here in the Albion lot, or not in the Wildcat lot, that we've used this winter to try to take pressure off of food and beverage. We are considering moving that and putting that on the north side of the Albion ticket office this summer, and keeping the Albion ticket office restrooms open and picnic tables around the Albion ticket office area on its deck and such that people could use that come and purchase maybe some food there, and not have the Albion Day Lodge open at all. Just limit it to the one building. That's in discussion a little bit. We don't know. We're kind of debating whether that food service option would be open on the weekends only or when. We're looking at, one of the things that we had in the parking modifications plan for Grizzly is one of the issues we have in the Grizzly lot is it's wider at the end up towards the summer road, which facilitates the booth and queuing up of cars and letting traffic go by. Then it narrows before it widens again. And at its narrowest spot, it's a little challenging for us to have parking and cars queuing up and traffic flowing. And that was one of the plans that was in the modifications, was to try to help that work a little bit in the summer there too. We are looking at this summer doing some significant work on the Collins lift, angle station. We have proposed to do a little powder expansion of the powder cache makeup room that's up on P Ridge. We are looking intently and we'll do some planning and potential engineering and design work on a Sunnyside / Albion replacement lift. Our forest, we have some concerns over the forest health. We've got an outbreak of the twig beetle going on here in Alta. We have hundreds and hundreds of trees that have been infected now. And we are working with the Forest Service to determine what will be the appropriate course of action. What do they want us to do with those? We're also watching for what the BWA that is maybe starting to creep into Alta. Our biggest, probably our bigger projects this summer, which we're waiting on final approval from the Forest Service on a potential widening of Corkscrew and a combination of Nina's and Shush into one run off the front side here. If that doesn't quite get approved, our intent would be we'd go back to Supreme and do some work below Grand Junction and above Grand Junction, probably over in Rock Dipper Gully and on Rock Dipper Knob, some terrain work. The terrain work on the Devil's Castle Road, if you've had a chance to ski over there, see it's been a big improvement. That enabled us to keep Devil's Castle Road up and operating this year with limited snowpack through the Christmas holidays. If we wouldn't have had those terrain changes and changed that grade and added that width, we do not think we could have kept Supreme online for the holidays. Despite that, we still had to close down Supreme for a couple of days after the holidays, and fortunately we got a storm that helped us get it back open. It has highlighted the need for us to move forward with some snowmaking into the Supreme area. Part of what we will also be doing this year is to try to start doing some planning, working with Salt Lake City Water and others to try to determine how we should go about that and if that's a direction we can achieve. Over in the Supreme area, we will, two projects that we're looking to get approved also with our board really is to get the dollars to do those, is Avalanche Fences above the Devil's Castle Road on the lower end. We have 2 slide paths that cross that road. Currently, we can't put equipment or skiers in that area until we've done control work in that area. So that we would use avalanche fences to control those rather than have to use explosives and shoot avalanches in that direction. And then we're also looking at installing 4 Wiesen towers up on East Castle that would allow us to no longer have to use an avalancher to do that explosive work there. So those are 2 other projects that we looked at are looking to go forward over in that area. And I think that is my report. You have any questions for us?
I've got one specific one for you, Mike. Do you know the time of day on the 31st that summer operations meeting might occur?
Let me see here. Check. I know I just got a text on it a little bit ago. I don't have a time.
Okay, well, maybe you could communicate that to the town when you do have that time.
We will do that.
Okay,
That would be our intent.
And the other thing that is more of a comment, I remember saying to you, it must have been in May or June, that I was trying to build a budget that assumed this 25% decrease because that was the most I could assume without taking draconian measures before we knew how it was going to unfold. And I remember you saying that you thought we'd be lucky if it turned out to be 25%. And so I'm glad to hear about your result. Congratulations on at least so far a successful pivot.
I think we'll have our revenues from skier visits will be, maybe 15%, which is the bulk of our revenue, as you know. Ski school is going to be down 50%. Food and beverage is going to be down 50%. And what the surprise was there, Harris, is we had based what we thought our capacity was going to be on food and beverage, because that was our where we could accommodate the least amount of people. And the surprise is that the public took upon themselves to reduce the demand on those facilities. Many people have, as you've noticed, have eaten in their cars and tailgate, all that kind of stuff. And we really haven't taxed our food and beverage. We haven't really gotten to the point where we've had long lines, at any of them. I think the longest line we've had is a 15-minute line at Alf's. That's moved pretty quick. So we've been very pleased with that, and that actually enabled us to kind of up our capacity numbers a little bit higher than our original projections and get us above that. We were thinking we may have been closer to 30% or more off, but we've been able, and we're glad we didn't have to go there. We've been able to accommodate and get people out on the hill.
Good. Thanks for the report. Margaret, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. 2 questions related to kind of the summer. I don't know what the BWA is. It's some sort of, is that the aphidus or whatever?
I may have said that wrong. I should have Beth there. That's the one that's killing the subalpine firs over in big cottonwood that spreads to the wind. We've picked up a little of that in our base area here. A few trees have started to show up with that. We're hoping it's not spreading. We're going to aggressively go after any tree that shows those symptoms this year is the intent. But this could be we don't know yet, but we're waiting for some feedback from the Forest Service, but there could be a lot of trees cut if they want us to go in that direction this year. So we're trying to determine is it okay with them dying and staying standing, or does that spread the disease more, or what? We're waiting for more feedback on that from the foresters.
Yeah. So because that there's so much of subalpine fir in the Alta area, if that information, once you know what it is, could be shared, then property owners that have that on their property might be able to take advantage of that science as well, so that as a community, we work together for the health of the forest.
So the BWA affects the subalpine firs. The twig beetle is affecting all of them.
Yeah.
A lot of the spruces are being impacted by the twig beetle, but my understanding that I'm not sure if the twig beetle becomes fatal or not, or it just makes the trees look half brown all the time. So that's where we're at right now. We have a lot of them that look like they're half brown, and that seems to be spread pretty easily too.
Okay. And then the second question related to the summer ops, and Harris asked you about that for the time of the meeting, but in the past, there were people that were invited, I think, as stakeholders to those summer ops meeting. And so I wasn't sure if that's a public meeting or if you were going to, again, send invitations to particular shareholder groups and just how it would be handled.
Our intent would be to send emails to the same people that we had before, but also try to give out some sort of public notice. So if there's others that were interested in attending, they could. So it's really an opportunity for us to take input and take an assessment. We do have some, I didn't mention, we are continuing to do some trail maintenance work this year, but nothing really, not as significant as last year in that regard.
Thanks, Margaret. Sheridan, I think you were interested in saying something.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Mike. I'm glad. It sounds like the business is pretty robust, and I'm happy for you. I wondered if you could speak about whether or not the Sunnyside lift will be operational. Also, if you are at the end of your relationship with Icon and reevaluating that. And lastly, if there are constituents that could write to the owners of the Alta Ski Lift Company, how they might do that.
The owners have elected that all correspondence comes through Alta Ski Lift management, and we can share that with them. They're not interested in having people write directly to them. In regards to Sunnyside Lift, Sunnyside Lift is we do not plan to run Sunnyside Lift this summer. We're going to do a little work on Sunnyside again, and we're not really. We're still trying to evaluate whether running the lift is the right thing for us to do in this, or whether it's it's better to stay a trail and hiking type community. So we don't have any plans to run that at this point in time. We are in Icon for one more year, at least. The contract goes through the end of next year, and we will be meeting with Icon to talk about the future later this year, I'm sure. We tried to get off of the Icon base and just onto the Icon Premier, just the regular Icon pass for next year, and we're unsuccessful in our effort to do that, which has put a little bit of a rift between us and Icon, but we'll see where it goes. It's there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there any other thing for Mike at the moment? Okay, well, we appreciate your report. That was a lot of information today. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible action on resolution 2020 R5, adopting Salt Lake City Community Renewable Energy Program Interlocal Agreement. Chris Cawley has been working on this, and we have a representative from Salt Lake City, Christopher Thomas. So let me give it to you, Chris, first, and then you can get Mr. Thomas involved as you want to.
Will do. Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so I will introduce Christopher Thomas. Christopher is the Senior Energy and Climate Program Manager in the Salt Lake City Department of Sustainability. Christopher has been working with a handful of folks from other communities in Utah. I think the list is Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, Cottonwood Heights, Park City, and Moab have been collaborating to lead the way in the early phases of developing this a community renewable energy program. It's not the Salt Lake City Renewable Energy Program, just a program that Salt Lake City has been taking a strong leadership role in developing since it was enabled by an act of the state legislature in 2019. So I'm just gonna talk through this report that I provided to the council for the benefit of everybody else on the call who hasn't had a chance to read that. Christopher agreed to join us to correct me when I misspeak and answer any questions that council has about where we are with this program today. So you all will remember that a couple years ago in December 2019, the town council passed unanimously a resolution to begin participating in this program and establishing a goal of getting 100% of electric energy for participating customers from renewable sources in Alta. In the meantime, the 5 communities I described and all the 22 total communities participating in the program as of today have been working on a governance structure to manage the development of this renewable energy program. Where we are today is that that governance structure has been more or less finalized. It's detailed in the interlocal agreement I provided to the council in that packet that includes the staff report, the ILA, and a resolution you can use to adopt the ILA, approve it rather. In order to continue participating, this is kind of one of those participation milestones. We need to adopt that ILA by July 31st of this year. And then we need to budget to spend something in the order of about $218 this year and next year to cover our share of the program costs. And I'll describe that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. Once that ILA is fully executed and we know who's on board and who's not on board, an implementation period of about 2 years will kick off, during which time Rocky Mountain Power will apply to the Utah Public Service Commission and the Community Renewable Energy Program Agency, or I'm not sure if I nailed the title on that one, will begin to essentially put together this portfolio of renewable resources that all these communities on the program will be getting their power from. The next milestone for continuing to participate or not continuing to participate will be in the fall of 2022, I believe. We'll need to pass an ordinance, a Town of Alta ordinance, to sort of finalize our participation in the program. At that point, it will be on individual customers in Alta and all the participating communities to opt out of the program if they choose to do so. Like I say in the report, renewable resources will probably start to come online sometime in 2025 or 2026, with the goal of, again, 100% of our electric energy in Alta coming from renewable sources by 2030. The ILA sets forth the way in which communities get to vote and contribute financially in the program. It's called the participation percentage. It's determined by, I believe, an average of our, is it population and percentage of the total electric load? Is that right? Yep. So we have 383 residents and a very small percentage of the total electric load consumed in the 22 participating communities. So our participation percentage is 0.063, and that is our share of the program implementation costs, which is why that dollar amount I just described is really quite low. It does, of course, affect our ability to influence the proceedings that will follow, the execution of the ILA. We will get to appoint a representative to the board of directors that will oversee the agency that works with Rocky Mountain Power and the Public Service Commission to put this program together. In most cases, matters will be decided by a vote of those board members. In some cases, matters will be decided by a weighted vote, in which case that participation percentage will determine how much influence individual communities can have. There are some special cases where the way communities can vote and weigh in works a little bit differently, such as in the case of if incremental cost increases in that renewable energy portfolio exceed like 10% beyond existing electric costs, then like a supermajority of participating communities and a supermajority of weighted votes will be required to go ahead and implement that rate increase and get on the renewable program. Those are the details that I extracted from all the program materials that Christopher and his team provided to us. Like I said, we do need to approve this ILA by passing a resolution sometime between now and July, and then budget for that relatively modest expense in supporting the program this next fiscal year if you want to continue participating. Like I described, rates would not change for Rocky Mountain Power customers and Alta for several years. I think it's the case. And we have, after adopting the ILA, we have another option to opt out probably next year at some point. So that's where we are today with the program. Happy to take any questions or more likely direct them to Christopher.
Where does the renewable come from?
Was that where does the renewable energy come from, Sheridan?
Yes.
I'd like to direct that one to Christopher.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. I'm really excited that you're considering taking the next step toward participating in the program. So in terms of where the renewable resources would be, so they would have to be feeding into the Rocky Mountain Power electric system. That system actually spans over it spans over 8 states. It's quite a large system that we're a part of. I believe, so it would have to be interconnected with Rocky Mountain Power system, but we would have some flexibility in that we could choose to build resources in Utah, which is probably what we would do. Or if we found a really good deal, say on Wyoming wind, we could potentially decide to procure projects in Wyoming if we wanted to take into consideration costs as well, which I'm sure we all would. So there's some flexibility in where the resources would actually be built. My guess is most would probably be built in Utah, although we would have some flexibility to go elsewhere if needed.
Does renewable mean wind and solar? Are there other sources that count as renewable?
That's a great question, and I don't have the list in front of me, but the statute does spell out what it considers to be renewable energy. So wind and solar are definitely included. I believe it specifically mentions battery storage, and it also mentions energy efficiency and demand response.
I guess I was specifically wondering about hydroelectric.
I do not think it's included, but let me check, and I'm happy to get back to Chris.
I had a question in terms of the priority for renewable energy, because it seemed to me that there were some sources that have maybe not as negative an impact as coal, but that also would have a less positive impact, perhaps, as solar and wind. And so whether the selection would be based upon their overall footprint, negative footprint, or whether it's weighted by cost.
That's a great question. And so I don't think we've got it spelled out to that level of detail, but as Chris was mentioning, the governance agreement talks about voting. And so it basically talks about a process whereby the communities we would issue a request for proposals in conjunction with Rocky Mountain Power. We would get bids back, kind of saying like, here's what could be built and where and at what cost. And then it would be up to our interlocal agency to vote to decide which of those proposals we would move forward with. And so in kind of the most basic case, the vote would require, well, actually there would be 2 votes required. One, which would be a majority of the communities participating. So just a straight majority of whoever's participating. And it would require a majority of the electric loads who are participating. And so basically it'll come down to which proposals can clear both of those vote thresholds.
Okay, other questions? All right, I'm not seeing them.
Sorry, the last thing was just there was a requirement that council approve, and I didn't see anything on the signature page for town of Alta that our council had approved the language. So just
right, there's a resolution. Is that what I think the resolution would adopt? It says adopts the attached interlocal agreement and then essentially allows, I guess, me to sign it.
Exactly.
And there is a signature page on in the ILA. It's page 29 of the attachment, the council meeting attachment. I'm not sure if that's what Margaret was referring to or not. But.
yes, so it's not required that council sign on that page is approved as a form or whatever else. It would be in the resolution itself that we would establish that. I mean, I thought the ILA said that the council for the communities had to approve it. So I just wanted to make sure we were doing it right.
I'll point out that kind of combination of usage and population is not unique to this entity. That's the way a number of other entities have governance structure, in my experience. Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot other questions. Polly, you have any issues with this document if we were to, and the resolution that approves my signing it on behalf of the community?
No,
Okay.
I looked at it and it looks good. And
Yeah, I know that you and Chris spent a lot of time on this.
And the financial obligation for the town is pretty minimal.
$219, I think, rounded to the nearest dollar. It's not a big, I think we can put that in. I think we'll find a place in the budget for that. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2021 R5, the Salt Lake City Community Renewable Energy Program Interlocal Agreement? That doesn't sound right.
Just Community Renewable Energy Program.
Okay, yeah, there's a SLC in here. So adopting Community Renewable Energy Program Interlocal Agreement as you have seen it.
I'll second.
Right, who made the motion? I'm sorry. Margaret? Margaret made the motion, Sheridan seconded it. Is there discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Christopher, Chris and Christopher, you got it done today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Christopher.
Thanks so much.
Okay. I think it's great if we could get our, I think it's great, especially being in the ski resort and protect our winters and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we have a vested interest well beyond the generalized vested interest that everybody has about climate change. Okay, the next item on the agenda we're a little behind schedule now is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the February 10th town council meeting and the treasurer's report and the staff report. Did we have the budget committee minutes to approve?
They were
today?
included here, Mayor, but I did not include them in that list.
That's what I thought.
They are in the consent agenda. My apologies.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's the February 10th, 2021 minutes, the February, I don't remember the date offhand.
26th.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, they are.
26th.
It's right there on the webpage, right? February 26th, Finance Committee meeting, the treasurer's report and the staff report.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Elise. Sorry, Cliff.
Second.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say, but and then I thought maybe you were just waiting to vote. Okay, is there any discussion about that? We'll have a moment to ask questions in just a minute.
I had a discussion about it. In terms of the budget committee, it indicates me being present, and yet I was removed as a participant and my speaking was disabled. So it may be inaccurate to reflect me as a present participant in that meeting.
Yeah, I knew that you were watching it, so I wasn't sure actually how to document that on the minutes. Polly,
Right,
any guidance on
Yeah,
that?
so I'm trying to remember, were you able to chat in or text? No, not at all.
So, I mean, it could be corrected by, instead of saying Alta Town Council meeting in the heading, if it would be simply to say budget committee meeting, and I was not a budget committee member. And since I didn't participate, but merely viewed it, maybe that handles it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Margaret's got a good point. It's a little bit like she was watching it not on YouTube, but on this other mechanism, really, I think is what that would.
I'll make the change to make it clear.
Okay, so with that amendment then to the consent agenda, is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the departmental reports?
I'll just throw out there that there's a second budget committee meeting this Friday on the 12th. And I'll make
Right.
sure I document who's there, who's present and who's not.
Margaret, I think it looked like you wanted to turn off your mute, but then I think you were having some camera issues. I just want to check in with you before we move on. Now you are muted still. There you
There.
go.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So I was doing that because I had some questions about items in the consent agenda. And so in reference to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the business license study, the question came up in terms of John's administrator's report talking about how we're still using $200 a square foot for stated valuation for buildings, and whether that potentially is something that should be part of the business license study evaluation as well. Also a question to John on the second page of his report, that he says something about the accessory dwelling units relating to be just like a mortgage, and I don't understand that. So
yeah,
it's
I mean, we ought
32.
31 is the building, and then the legislative session is on 32, right? The building issue certainly should get into one or the other of these reviews, right? I think that makes sense because it certainly costs more than $200 a square foot to build a building in Alta.
Right.
No
Time,
question.
it's time to look at that, and we will.
Yeah. And then the legislative session,
the reference to the 30 days, that's how the state determines whether or not something is commercial. Because if you're renting something 30 days or more, it's just like a mortgage and it's not short term, it's not commercial. So even in areas in Alta where we say you can't rent your single family home, you can rent that home for 30 days or more at a time. Because that's
right.
not.
So I think that I'm confused by the just like a mortgage clause in there too. What do you mean, John? Disappeared.
Sorry, I'm getting internet unstable. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I mean, that's kind of how the state determines whether or not, like, it's just like a mortgage. So if you're paying a mortgage, you're paying on a monthly basis. If you're renting something 30 days or more at a time, that's kind of just like a mortgage. So the state does not require, sales tax or,
okay.
I mean.
So there's an analogy between paying a mortgage payment and paying rent on a longer term lease. I do know, Margaret, that the short-term rentals are less than 30 days by state code. And 30 longer than 30 days. I don't know about 30 days exactly. Polly probably knows, but longer than 30 days are certainly long-term rentals and have a different legal. It's a different legal context. Does that clear up the issue?
I think to the extent that it will for today. It's probably not worth spending a lot of time on. But
all right.
And then my question was to Chris about the census. And do you know about this resolution operation, what potential effect it would have on modifying the numbers for Alta if the numbers do come about less as a result of COVID?
Not well. What I understand about it is that we could potentially petition the Census Bureau to essentially default to some population data generated through American Community Survey data, which is like an ongoing demographic survey of communities around the country, which generate ongoing population growth projections, which come with like margins of error. In our case, the margin of error is like 205% or something crazy because we're a tiny community with unique demographic trends. But so we're now working with a partnership specialist out of the Census Bureau office in Grand Junction, who's been super responsive. He's actually been great, but it sounds like a lot of communities are going to be relying on that. There are a lot of communities with big basically transient population bases like resort communities and university towns, small cities and towns with big residential dorms and things like that. So I think it's just something for us to learn about, maybe a bridge to cross when we come to it. I think we'll have a period of time in which to file a request and just take it from there. I wish I could say more about what I thought what there is to know about what our population numbers might be, but I just don't. So.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I think, so shall we, let me move on. I just got a text a few minutes ago from Mike Mon telling me that the summer stakeholders meeting on March 31st is 1 to 2 p.m. So you can make a note of that timing. Thank you, Mike, for that follow-up. I appreciate that. I'll put it in my calendar now. And then I'll give you my mayor's report. Okay. Good. The magic of instant messaging. All right. I can't express enough thanks for the activities during our avalanche and interlodge cycle. As you know, as many people know, we had avalanches in places we haven't had them in recorded memory before, and Jake Brown is not going to be parking at the Seven Turns turnout again during a big snow event. We continue to operate our office with one staff member at a time and no walk-in visitors per COVID protocols. I continue to attend the Salt Lake County Mayor's meetings on Friday about COVID. And you think back about this year, COVID and other emergencies like wind and earthquake. Everybody gets impressed when we talk about the interlodge events. So our last in-person meeting was on March 11th, a year almost to the day ago. And we're not out of the woods, but we have come a long way together. Case rates in the past 14 days, it's 230 per 100,000 in Salt Lake County, which that and some other metrics is low enough that the governor moved, according to the criteria that the governor has, we've moved from the high level of transmission to the moderate level of transmission according to their indices. The governor still is, as he has been, in control of how the vaccines are being provided. I think it's still the case today that it's 50 and older can access the vaccines. Younger people with certain medical conditions can. So if you have a younger person in your family, you can consult that. Younger people who do K through 12 education can be vaccinated as well. Okay, it was in John's report, but it's true that I brought up the issue of congregate living situations again and asked again to have a vaccination site in Alta, but I was turned down, although I think a conversation with Chris made me think that it may be that the Alta Clinic is going to become a vaccination site. Chris, do you know?
Yeah, they've been approved by the state, I believe, is their,
Good.
regulating entity there. And the last time I talked to clinic staff, they had been expecting a shipment of vaccines by a certain date, and it hadn't come to pass, but they should be able to, provide vaccine to locals who are eligible under the state guidelines.
Good. So that makes it more convenient. You don't have to go downtown. My understanding is that most likely the vaccine at the Alta Clinic will be the J&J vaccine because of the transportation and storage requirements of the various vaccines. And I want to say that everything that I can tell about it is that is a perfectly good solution. And if you are eligible, wherever you go, you may not have a choice anyway, and you should I would be happy to get that, or one of my family members. We had the first budget meeting, as we just talked about, with the consent agenda. We had a 75% of our last December's revenues in December. Those are the last hard numbers we have. And that's what we budgeted for. And so maybe we are going to be good. We'll see. During that one thing I want to say about the interlodge is Mike Morey has told me that he has not heard of a spike of COVID cases post interlodge, which you can imagine that could have happened. And of course, it might happen with our guests who leave, but that's a good sign that we don't have evidence of it. Okay, I've been dealing a lot with parking issues, as many of you are aware. I've been talking to the Alta ski lifts and to the Forest Service and other interested parties quite a bit about that issue. You can see I won't go through all these details in the interest of time, but since we talked about the CWC website and I showed you where you can get the information about the various transportation modes, I'll just kind of skip over those. I did attend on the February 12th, I attended a legislative affairs committee where Alta Ski Lifts presented a proposal for land exchanges and parking expansion. It's the proposal that has the title A Path Forward that I think was the same document that we saw when Mike Mon came to talk to us about parking. The other discussion at that meeting was there were a couple other issues about the wilderness areas and what the legislation should include about them, mountain bikes, whether they should be in a White Pine special district or not. That's a special district because of the helicopter skiing. And then there is an interesting issue about moving a boundary to the wilderness on the west side by Mount Olympus. You know, once wildernesses are established, their boundaries are not generally changed because of a slippery slope argument, I think. The Bonneville Shoreline Trail goes through the wilderness right at the edge of it, and moving the wilderness slightly would allow for mountain bikers to use the trail legally. The UFA board meeting was on the 16th. The UFA approved moving 3 wildland crew members or FTEs into the hot shots, which is an upgrade in their capabilities. So that seems like a good thing for us, since we are likely customers of wildland fire services. They did reveal in that meeting the weighted vote for revenue issues, combining population and member fees. Our vote on a revenue generating discussion, if 2 board members request a weighted vote, it's not automatic for those issues, is 0.54%. UFSA focused on building new fire stations and how to finance them with a bond. I attended the CWC Budget Finance Committee on the 19th, which was the 3 main topics were, and Ralph Becker alluded to this, is trying to articulate the value proposition to the various communities. I don't think that's difficult for us, given our location and how central we are in the central Wasatch. There was a discussion last year. They lowered the assessment, I guess, the request for us by 10%, like for everybody else. So our payment went from $15,000 to $13,500. And I've suggested that on the presumption that we're going to have a better ski season next year in terms of revenue than this year, that I would support asking all the municipalities to return to their 100% contribution. Some of them remained at that level anyway. The other big ticket item that we talked about is that we've been leasing space downtown, an office space for the CWC. There were some clauses in that lease that made it so that we couldn't get out of it, but the lawyers is still trying to figure out if we have to stay in that space, because now we've gotten used to not having that space. On the 24th, I attended the Tourism Recovery Task Force. Mostly we were talking about seasonal workers and visas, and I don't know how important that is to us. I have not heard about a situation in Alta that is like, I know in Jackson and in Aspen, there are many foreign young workers who come for the ski season or for the summer season, and Springdale seems to have that issue as well. Cliff, is that something that you know about as one of the members of the lodging community?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I have to admit I was daydreaming.
Oh, okay.
What
That's
was-
all right. It was just
what
about
was-
seasonal workers who come from other countries and anyway.
Sure, I can just say that we haven't found that productive at this point to pursue lots of people who do have U.S. work papers who want to apply, and certainly, over the last year, we went from a shortage of qualified applicants to oversupply.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, some of the businesses around the state now are worried that people have permanently moved out of this industry and it will be hard to get back. There was a discussion about reopening with pent-up demand and how that is going to be exciting and a challenge. And there was some discussion of some idea that seems to be getting some currency in Europe on so-called vaccination passports. Attended the Council of Mayors on the 25th. The ADU was a big topic, as was this, that's the auxiliary dwelling units, which we could not head off, but the sponsor of the bill is willing to take up any concerns that we have in the interim sessions. And then there were other efforts to diminish municipal authority on building codes and billboards and things like that. But mostly those turned out not to be as big challenges to us as we were worried about. Shelley Tusher did a good job on our behalf, I think, as our lobbyist. We talked to, so the budget committee met just to talk about some kind of baseline assumptions and some big ticket items. I attended a Salt Lake County vaccination rollout meeting on the 26th, but and when I brought up, is this meeting about priorities? The answer was no. It's about outreach to underserved communities, and I think the best thing that we could do is have the clinic provide vaccinations for us. CWC board meeting was on the 1st. We agreed to extend the contract for the environmental dashboard to go to phase 2. We agreed with a firm to estimate the greenhouse gas emissions from the various transportation options under consideration in the MTS. So that was kind of an upgrade of the MTS to include greenhouse gases. We met with UDOT on the status of DIS, and that was the meeting where I questioned UDOT's implementation of their own purpose and need on the dimension of reliability. The CWC facilitator is Juliana Christie, and I met with her on March 4th. She's trying to see how much consensus there is about modes of transportation. And I don't know the answer to that. I think there are various opinions. The road meeting was on the 10th, and we reviewed the Long Interlodge. And then on 10 o'clock on March 9th, which was just yesterday. And then I attended the visitor use study selection meeting. And I've now crossed out who that committee is recommending to the General Commission. You'll hear about that soon. But I think we have a lot of promise in understanding the trade-offs of having more or fewer people in the canyon. Upcoming meetings, the Town of Alta Budget Committee is meeting on the 12th from 9 to 10. The UFA meets on the 16th at 7:30. CWC MTS Summit is, as you heard, on the 19th at 9 o'clock. Council of Mayors is on the 25th. At 11:30, the CWC board meeting is on April 5th at 3:30 in the afternoon. April 13th is the presumably the last road meeting for the season at 10 o'clock in the morning. And on the 14th, we have our town council meeting. Temporary dog licenses issued between 2/10/21 and 3/8/21. Trish Petzold for 14 days, Kevin McDonald for 4 days, Bruce Hoteling for 11 days, Brooke McQueen for 15 days, Kevin Dennis for 30 days, James Laughlin for 7 days, and Dan Monahan for 14 days. Okay.
Harris, I had a question about your comment about the Visitor Use Selection Committee. Once that is announced, will we be able to see what the scope of that investigation or study will look into? Or is that available now on the website?
Yeah, I would be surprised. Let me see. Let me get an answer to you on that question. I don't know. Let me see. On the Central Wasatch Commission, it would probably be under projects. Let me see if it comes up. There is a visitor use study link. It doesn't look like it's got the whole RFP on here. And I don't know. I don't know. Polly, is that going to be a public document, the submissions in response to RFPs by an interlocal like that?
A lot of times it's protected. Parts of it are protected, but parts of it are not.
Okay. What I would suggest, Margaret, is you send a note to, and we can provide the email address if you don't have it, but Blake Perez would be the person at the Central Wasatch Commission to ask. And if you look on the Central Wasatch Commission's website and go to contacts, Blake comes up. It's blake@cwc.utah.gov. Yeah, because sometimes those submissions have proprietary, information in them about how they do business and things like that. And I think a lot of them wouldn't want the dollar amount to be a public, revealed in public.
Yeah, it was more the scope was my interest. So I'll follow it up.
You may get the answer to your question from the webpage. It may be adequate for your purposes. Okay, so now let's decide on whether or not we're going to conduct a business license study. I would move that we do. Okay, so I've made the motion and Cliff has seconded it. Is there some discussion on this item? At this point, I think what we're doing is saying we want to proceed with it, and we'll issue an RFP, and we'll have to come up with we're not committing ourselves today to spend the money. We would see what the submissions say, because there is a clause in that RFP that says we don't have to go through with this. So if they come in and by the time they come in, we will have January. And what was the date of the due date for the submissions, Jen? April
29th.
April 29th. So we'll have January and February's tax information by then. So I think we'll be in a pretty good position to know if we've got the $5,000 or $10,000 that these are going to cost at that point.
And just to clarify, but at that point, it doesn't go back to the council. If the council supports the pursuit of the RFP today, then the next time it would come back to the council is either the committee saying we didn't get anything that qualifies, end of discussion, in April, or once there is a final report in July, we would get information again.
No, the council, unless well, it depends a little bit on how the numbers come in. But I think, if I remember correctly, you guys are 5,000. Like there's a threshold for where council needs to approve an agreement. So let's say it's $10,000 and the RFP, the one that the committee picks, is 12,000. The council, that would be an agenda item, and the council would approve the contract itself.
So there's a dollar threshold for that, Margaret. And I don't know off the top of my head, John might know this. If this comes in at 5 or 6 or something like that, is the council required to approve, or is that above some larger number?
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, and then the other place where this will come to the council that I can think of at the moment, Margaret, is that an expenditure like this would have to be part of a budget reconciliation, budget amendment process in May. So it won't be just till July. You'll know more between now and July than what your question. I don't know what's the right word. Assume, presumed, feared, hoped for. I don't.
And we'll also keep you updated, apprised of the progress if it's set to out on that schedule, or what you'll be hearing about it, but you won't be taking action on it.
Yeah, it's just because we were talking about in this meeting later than the work session about other scope, whether that's something that is now going to be part of the ask for in the RFP, or whether, I mean, how we're dealing with that was kind of the question. So if we're expanding it to what we talked about in our discussion today versus what's actually in the document currently we're looking at.
And are you referring to the question you had about the building fees, the per square footage?
Well, as I recall, we also talked about dog licensing and how much time that Jen is putting into that, and whether, although that doesn't sound like a business license fee, that sounds maybe more like it's revenue portion,
right?
Revenue and expense portion. But I thought there was something else that we talked about, but
I thought it was your question about the square footage amount, but that would have to do with, that also would not be included in the business license fee. I don't think that's another fee as far as building code permit fees, building permit fees.
Yeah. It's just, I thought the RFP talked about multiple things, the permits and licensings and other things. So that's why I raised those other questions. So it may be that I was reading it too broadly.
So you're speaking about the second RFP, Margaret, not the business license RFP, correct? I think what the question is before you right now is just focused on the business license study. For right now. I know it's confusing.
Okay.
There's 2 RFPs that were presented and there was some overlap, but we're just looking at the business license fee study.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jen.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I understood. That's what's on.
And so there's, so the no dog license review in this or other fee structures within the town would be looked at.
Right.
Under the
This is just the business licenses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further comments, questions?
So
objections?
I was incorrect. I got my towns mixed up. And in your procurement code, there is no threshold for council to approve. Generally, it is kind of a budget issue. If it changes the budget, then it would have to go back to council. And it again reminds me that I need to prioritize updating your procurement policy, and I will try to do that in the next 2 months.
Yeah, so, if this is going to have, I am sure that we'll only go forward with this if we have the money. That's kind of the whole point of having the dates be the dates that they are. So, Okay, let me call the question if that's okay. All those in favor of are going forward with the business license study, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, I think that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next issue is the discussion and possible action on setting dog license numbers. I'm gonna invite, so this is resolution 2021 R6. I'll find it again and I'll share my screen, and because Cliff had something in mind specifically. Cliff, let me invite you to make a motion, if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you. I move that we adopt this resolution with the change that the total number of licenses in Class A would be 29 and the total number of licenses in Class B would be 43.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Elise. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I think that was unanimous. That was showing the utility of having a work session is what that just did. So, all right, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2021 001 land use amendments. I don't know that we are going to be able to do that as with quite as much efficiency as we just did the dogs. So I'll point to the time, and I'm okay with going a little bit longer. Is there? Let me go to the ordinance. All right, this is I'll show it to you, but it's okay. So now you're looking at ordinance number 2021-01. There are the preambles and the language of the attachments that, okay, so the attachments are not shown right here. Are they on the webpage? I would have thought they were here.
They were definitely on last month's,
Yeah.
but I did send you updated language, both.
Oh, here with attachments, right?
Here we go. Last item. I think it was on the top there.
Yeah, they were there.
Oh, I lost the
There
ordinance.
you go. So go up to 1 for 2 and 3.
Ah, yeah, here we go.
So do 3. That's the clean copy. The
Okay.
2 is every single change that we've talked about since in the last 3 years.
Oops. I just clicked on the wrong button. Okay, there. All right. How shall we proceed?
Just a point of order on the document that's in front of us. It says attachment 1 is, I guess it was attachment 1, attachment 3 to the meeting materials, attachment 1 to the ordinance. Is that right?
That's correct. So the ordinance, the actual ordinance language refers to the code changes being in attachment 1.
I move that we adopt this ordinance.
Elise, looks like you're trying to turn off your mute. I'm not sure if you are, but I'll second this. I'll second Cliff's motion.
Thanks, I was struggling.
Yeah, after teaching over Zoom, I could tell. All right, discussion.
Well, as I intimated in our work session, I'm concerned that it doesn't go far enough to protect things like picnic tables close to stream beds, as we've already witnessed was the case this past summer. So that's my hesitation and deep concern about adopting this as written.
Well, and I guess I agree with that. And I thought that part of our discussion from the work session was that we were going to communicate with partner agencies and determine what, if any, requirements they had related to water quality and these particular structures. So to adopt an ordinance and then seek insight from those partner organizations seems backwards to me.
Well, I wholeheartedly join in the concerns of Councilmember Davis and Councilmember Burke to protect Albion Basin and our watershed. That's why we've been working on this for the past 6 years. And I think all the council members have made some really important contributions in that direction toward making this ordinance better. But I don't believe that what's been expressed is a basis for further delay.
I want to ask John a question. So are we, I know that your issues to still be resolved need to, we didn't get through that whole list today, but so maybe it's a question for John and Polly. If we were to pass this motion, what is the status of the whole document at that point? I mean, it's adopted, right? But what is that?
Yeah, John and I worked on that list, and that list of outstanding issues was, I think, provided, the initial one was provided in January.
Yeah, sometime
something
ago,
like
right?
that. It's been several months that we've kind of been whittling down what are really the issues. So from my standpoint, or I would say that none of those other issues have come up, have been discussed in any of the work sessions. And so the way, there weren't really other major items to discuss.
So I guess let me phrase my question in another way. Is this document complete in the sense that it takes a position on those other issues? Because I didn't go through those other issues one by one this week. I've just had other things.
Yes, I went through, and based on what I wrote and in that, my edits to that kind of summary document,
yeah,
all the edits have been made. So where I put staff recommends changing it, I made the changes. Where I put staff doesn't recommend changing it, I didn't make it. And
that was my understanding. I just wanted to be clear about that. That there is a default that we all know what that is based on the communication. Okay.
Yes, and I appreciated that memo where John and Polly took us through all of that line by line, and I followed it point by point too.
Okay.
That would be the March 4th.
Yes, right.
Memo.
Okay. Is there, I mean, one of the things that we can always do is come back if we need to I'm gonna give Cliff credit, so it's not plagiarizing him, but I'm going to borrow some of his language about the difficulty of seeing around every corner. And sometimes, just getting new information requires a new action. And sometimes, we should be open to that, seems to me. Okay, is there additional comment or question or? Okay, sounds like we are ready to call this question. Cliff, did you want to say something, or are you just being prepared to vote?
Just turning on my mic.
Okay, that's sometimes like a hand raise. All right, all those in favor of adopting 2021-01 land use amendment and with these attachments, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 2 noes and 3
Nay.
yeses, so the ordinance is adopted. All right, that was okay. I'll just say that was a long process.
Mayor,
Yes.
could I have the floor for just 1 minute, please?
Yes, please. In fact, I would love to have somebody kind of tie this up. That would be great.
I just want to acknowledge all of the work that all of our colleagues have put into this over the last 6 years. All of the input from the residents, the community, the property owners, Alta ski area, friends of Alta, the town of Alta staff, led by tireless, continual work by John Goldner. Chris Colley really had some contributions here too. All of the work by the Planning Commission, all of the work by the mayor and the council members, including and maybe especially the council members who didn't vote for this today, had significant contributions to it, not just to accommodate and try to bring together the council, but actually things without which the ordinance revisions would not be as good as they are today. We had the efforts of 3 very capable attorneys, including great efforts by Polly McLean to bring this effort to conclusion. And finally, I want to remember early on and really very significantly in this process, the contributions of the late Clarence Kemp.
Thank you, Cliff. That was, I think, nicely said. I appreciate that. And I thank everybody involved too. And I know that this document is a lot better for everybody's contributions and objections, as Cliff said. So, okay. Anybody? No. Okay, John, you want to say something?
No, just thank you very much. We'll continue to move forward with the zoning ordinance modifications and amendments on anything that we missed. And I just really want to echo what Cliff said as well. You know, Cliff started this basically 6 years ago almost, because of the waterway setbacks. And it was Clarence Kemp from Forest Grid, who left us way too soon, who pretty much directed us to the proper decision on how to treat the waterways. So he was fantastic, and I still miss him. So thank you all for your patience in this, and we're not finished. We'll keep going. But this chapter, thanks, it's over.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, we have 2 items left on our agenda is new business and a motion to adjourn. So is there new business?
It's not so much new business. It's more of a, I didn't know when to bring this up. So last meeting, we had some people down at, I believe, off of the bypass road who were talking about their parking spaces going from, 2 to 3. I just was wondering where we were at on that.
Right.
part.
Yeah, so I think that we ought to get that on our agenda. It isn't something that was urgent at the moment. It has to do with the way that this got communicated was through the business license renewal process. And so I had a conversation with Karen Travis, and my view of this is we should change the ordinance to be consistent with our practice. But we haven't looked at it carefully, and so that's I think we'll put it on the agenda. I don't know. We'll put it on the April agenda if there's room on the April agenda. How's that, Elise? If not, it may get pushed forward a little bit, but we'll get it done before the business license renewal issue comes up, I think, or we'll at least discuss it. I don't want to presume the sense of the council.
Yeah, let's just try to get it as a discussion point. Maybe we won't have a decision on it, but we should at least start talking about it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And Mayor, it's important to note that the issue is being litigated.
Well, I don't think the issue that we're talking about in terms of our ordinance requirements is being litigated. I think the parking situation in a neighborhood might be being litigated.
Yes, that's correct. But I think part of the litigation is now looking at the lack of compliance with the issuance of business licenses and the non-enforcement of the town.
So as of yet, luckily, this town has not been named, or we haven't been served to my knowledge. So just so you know, it's
well, but that comment means that we should give this some more sense of urgency than what I was just expressing, because I wasn't aware that was connected.
Well, and I would just add that there's a longstanding principle in Anglo-American law, bedrock of the law of evidence, that just because you're getting sued should not prevent you from doing the right thing.
Agreed. But I think since both of us have horses in this race, Cliff, I think it's important to acknowledge that the folks that own the land should be circled back to when it comes to any discussion around any changes of ordinance, or a close look at why this hasn't been enforced by the town, how it's been on the books for longer than I was even aware, since the 90s. And it's an interesting question about inconsistency.
I didn't understand the comment about both of us have horses in the race.
I'm happy to take it back channel. Just since we have personal relationships with people in the neighborhood at stake.
My personal relationships are not at stake.
Well,
I'm talking about how we all have relationships with people who are directly affected by these ordinances.
I'll just say that that's often the case in a small town, that relationships exist between people who are affected by the actions of the town government, for sure. The other thing I'll say is that this process will be entirely a public one. Actions to change ordinances occur by conversation in this forum and a vote by the town council members.
unlike any council action, members of the Alta community should, let them know that they can sign up for the public notice website and check the website. And it will always, all of our discussions all of your discussions will be noticed at least 24 hours beforehand.
Right, and they can always submit public comment to our
Absolutely.
town council meetings. Yeah. Okay, is there any other, so Elise, I think, thanks for raising that issue. I was thinking about bringing it up, but hadn't really thought it through for today. And, but I think that Sheridan's comment will, I'll follow up with Polly and the staff on this, try to get this moving along. Okay.
And Mayor, if you might consider speaking to what's happening over in Brighton and the Mountainous Planning District and some controversy with regard to that and how it might affect how we move forward as a town. I was interested in your thoughts, and I wondered if you might share that in new business next meeting.
Yeah, we can, I can say something about what I know about it. Polly happens to be well informed about it, and so we can give you a report on that.
Yeah, it's probably more after 20 days after the ledge ended last Friday is when the governor is his deadline to veto anything. So 20 days at the next meeting, we'll know for sure what
The law is. Yeah. Right. Okay, good. All right. I would entertain a motion. Oh, Margaret.
I just had a question in terms of, and it's not really new business either. You brought up the ranked choice voting issue some time ago, and I didn't know that the town council had actually decided whether to pursue it or not pursue it. It just got dropped from the agenda thereafter. And so I wondered if that was something that should come up for an agenda item for the town council to discuss.
Well, we can put it on the agenda. The way it got dropped was we ran out of time once, and and then I tried to bring it up again. And after having looked into it myself, I don't think it's a great idea. I think there are problems with it. And I recall Elise saying, "Well, let's just skip it." And I thought there was a consensus that we just would skip the issue. So that's why it's not on the, plus there are plenty of other things that we had to talk about.
No, I'm very interested in looking at it.
So that was the point, was that the fact that Elise made a public comment on it and you had a comment, there were at least 3 others of us that I'm not sure that weighed in on it, although maybe you have knowledge about that. So that was my question, whether it should be something that we discuss further.
It is a complicated issue that will take a fair amount of time. So if you want it on the agenda, we can have it on the agenda. I think that April is the deadline to adopt a new voting procedure for the November 2021 election. Isn't that right, Polly? I think it's in May. I think it's the May 1st or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what the deadline is for that.
Anyway, I recall having believed that we had to have it done by April if we were going to do it.
Piper, do you happen to know, Ms. Clerk, or you're muted?
But it will to do a thorough conversation of this will take quite a while, and it's a technical and complicated area of really it's economic theory, but so we would have to dedicate a fair amount of time to it. But you are certainly within your rights to ask for that to be on the agenda, Margaret. And if you have a second person, which it sounds like you do, then it'll be on the agenda. I don't know. Apparently there was some bills in the legislature this year, but I didn't pay attention. Did this pass? No, it was not passed. The expansion of it. I don't know what the deadline is. I'm just trying to see if I
May
can.
4th is the effective date for any legislative changes, but
Okay.
the county has not updated us yet how those affect us yet.
Okay. Okay, so you know what I would propose, Margaret and Sheridan, is you do a little research and decide if this is something you really want to put on the agenda, and make sure that you make that request in time, and we'll put it on the agenda if you both want that, or any two town council members. But I would urge you to look into whether or not it's a feasible decision for us to make for
Mayor?
this year.
If I can offer up, I believe it's your presentation that you created that's posted
Yes.
on the town's website on the February 10th meeting. It's
Yes.
called Ranked Choice Voting Summary. That could be a good resource.
Yeah, it won't say anything about deadlines, and it is literally the tip of the iceberg of a very, to mix my metaphors, a very deep rabbit hole.
I think that's what it says on the cover page.
Right.
Anyways, just pointing that out since you put some time and effort into it.
Yeah. No, I just kind of ran out of the ability to grapple with something as complicated as that in the last two council meetings.
So I can commit to finding out what the deadline date is, and we'll send a communication out to the council.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Can I now suggest a motion to adjourn? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.